Hi there, friends. Thanks for tuning in to Potter Paradox. Get ready for an incredible journey as we present what if St. Mungo's healer scanned Harry at age 6 and found 47 memory charms Dumbledore used to erase his parents' love. If you find our stories entertaining, a simple like and subscribe would mean everything to us. Your support motivates us to create more. Here we go. Chapter 1, The Breaking Point. 6-year-old Harry Potter huddled in his cupboard, knees pulled tight against his chest. The spider that usually kept him company had retreated to its corner, sensing something different about the small boy tonight. Harry's breathing came in quick, shallow gasps as he pressed his palms against his eyes, trying desperately to stop the tears. The punishment had been swift, no dinner, a painful grip on his arm that would leave finger-shaped bruises, and back to the cupboard. But something felt different tonight. A pressure had been building inside Harry for days, weeks maybe. Like a pot left too long on the stove, something inside him was about to boil over. He didn't notice the way the air around him had begun to crackle with energy, how the thin mattress beneath him started to vibrate ever so slightly. In the kitchen, Petunia Dursley paused while drying a plate, her head tilting as she felt something shift in the house. Inside the cupboard, Harry squeezed his eyes shut tighter. A fragment of a dream, or was it a memory? Flashed behind his eyelids. A woman with fiery red hair was smiling down at him, her green eyes, his eyes, filled with tears as she sang softly. The vision vanished as quickly as it had come, leaving Harry gasping. Mum. The word felt foreign on his tongue. The Dursleys had told him his parents were drunks who died in a car crash. They'd told him he wasn't worthy of being loved, that his parents hadn't wanted him either. But the woman in that flash of memory had looked at him with such tenderness. Another fragment hit him, a man with messy black hair throwing him up in the air, catching him as he squealed with delight. "That's my boy," the man had laughed. "Dad?" Harry whispered into the darkness. Something cracked inside his mind. The pressure that had been building suddenly found a weak spot, a hairline fracture in whatever had been containing it. Harry gasped as pain lanced through his head. He curled tighter into himself, unaware that the light bulb hanging from the ceiling of the hallway outside his cupboard had begun to glow brighter, brighter, until, the bulb exploded in a shower of sparks just as Petunia was walking past. She shrieked, dropping the plate she'd been drying. What in blazes was that? Vernon bellowed from the living room. Inside the cupboard, Harry whimpered as another memory broke free, his mother's face close to his, her voice urgent. "Mama loves you, Harry. Dada loves you. You are so, so loved." "No." Harry suddenly screamed, the word tearing from his throat. They lied. The door to his cupboard blasted off its hinges, smashing against the opposite wall with such force that it cracked the plaster. Vernon came charging into the hallway just as every window in number 4, Privet Drive simultaneously shattered. The television in the living room exploded in a shower of sparks. Harry stared at his uncle, but he wasn't really seeing him. His eyes were unfocused, looking at something beyond the present. "They loved me," he whispered. "They loved me and you lied." The photographs lining the hallway, all featuring Dudley at various ages, began to vibrate in their frames before launching off the wall like missiles. Vernon ducked as a particularly heavy frame whistled past his head. Petunia shrieked at her husband. Vernon, his face a mask of rage and fear, lunged toward Harry with his hands outstretched, intent on subduing his nephew by force as he had done so many times before. "I'll put a stop to this right then." He never finished the sentence. The moment he came within 3 feet of Harry, Vernon was thrown backward as if hit by an invisible wrecking ball. He crashed into the living room, taking out the coffee table with a tremendous crack. Miles away, in the Ministry of Magic, alarms began to sound in the improper use of magic office. Mafalda Hopkirk looked up from her desk in shock as the monitoring quill began frantically scratching across the parchment, recording the highest levels of underage magic detected in decades. "Merlin's beard," she gasped, watching as the parchment filled with readings. "Get the accidental magic reversal squad. And alert St. Mungo's, we might need medical assistance." Back at Privet Drive, the entire house was shaking on its foundation. Cracks were spreading across the ceiling. The neighbors had begun to emerge from their homes, staring in bewilderment at number 4, which appeared to be the epicenter of what they could only assume was some kind of localized earthquake. Inside, Harry had collapsed to his knees, clutching his head as memories continued to break free, fragments of love and laughter he'd been made to forget. Each one caused him physical pain as it broke through whatever barriers had been placed in his mind. "Make it stop," he sobbed. "Please make it stop." With a final surge of magic that blew out the remaining windows and caused part of the staircase to collapse, Harry Potter lost consciousness. The blue glow around him faded, leaving the Dursleys' partially destroyed home in darkness. 5 minutes later, a team of wizards from the Accidental Magic Reversal Squad arrived into the front garden of number 4, Privet Drive, accompanied by a witch in lime green healer's robes. "Sweet Merlin," one of the wizards muttered as they took in the devastation visible even from outside. The healer pushed past them, wand already out as she rushed to the door, which hung precariously from a single hinge. "I'm detecting an unconscious magical child inside," she called over her shoulder. "Secure the area and prepare for memory modifications to the Muggles and neighbors." Inside, she navigated through the wreckage, following her diagnostic spell until she found a small boy collapsed in the hallway. Kneeling beside him, she ran her wand over his body, her expression growing increasingly concerned. "Child with severe magical exhaustion and some kind of mental trauma," she called out to her colleagues. "I need immediate transport to St. Mungo's." One of the wizards joined her, eyes widening as he got a clear look at the boy's face, and the lightning bolt scar on his forehead. "Is that Harry Potter?" the healer confirmed grimly. "And he's in very bad shape. We need to move now." As emergency procedures were activated and the still unconscious Harry was prepared for transport, none of them noticed the small silver instrument that had begun spinning rapidly on the desk of Albus Dumbledore, hundreds of miles away at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Healer Miranda Evergreen had been on duty for nearly 20 hours when the emergency alert came through. Normally, she would have handed off such a case to the incoming shift, but the moment she heard the name, Harry Potter, she knew she couldn't pass this to someone else. As a specialist in magical damage to children, and one of the few healers with expertise in memory charms and their effects on developing minds, she felt a responsibility to handle this personally. "Get me a full diagnostic kit and prepare treatment room 1, she instructed the welcome witch as she hurried toward the emergency arrival point. "And alert the head of the children's ward that we have a high-profile minor coming in." The boy who materialized on the stretcher moments later looked nothing like the legendary figure celebrated in wizarding households. He was small, too small for a 6-year-old, with a thin face and oversized clothes that hung off his frame. His famous scar stood out angry and red against his pale forehead. His clothes were switched for hospital pajamas with a flick of Miranda's wand, revealing more of his thin frame and several bruises in various stages of healing. "Merlin's beard," the trainee whispered. "Is that evidence of physical abuse?" "Yes." Miranda's voice was clipped, professional, but her eyes flashed with anger. "Noted in the file. We'll need a full history once he's stabilized." She cast more complex diagnostic charms, focusing on his magical core and neural pathways. "His core is nearly depleted, but it's remarkably large for a child his age. Give him a dose of magical regeneration potion, half strength due to his size." The trainee rushed to comply while Miranda continued her examination. It was when she began a standard scan for magical interference that her wand suddenly emitted a sharp, warning pulse. "That can't be right," she murmured, repeating the scan more carefully. The wand pulsed again, more insistently. "What is it, Healer Evergreen?" the trainee asked, returning with the potion. "There's something." Miranda cast a more specific diagnostic charm, one designed to detect memory modifications. Her wand began to glow a bright, alarming red. "Sweet Circe. Get head healer Brightwell in here immediately." While the trainee rushed off, Miranda carefully administered the regeneration potion to Harry, who remained unconscious. She then began a more thorough scan, her face growing paler by the second as the results manifested in glowing text above the boy's bed. By the time head healer Brightwell arrived, a tall, imposing wizard with silver-streaked dark hair, Miranda had completed her initial assessment. "What's so urgent that you needed me personally, Healer Evergreen?" Brightwell asked, though his tone softened when he saw the patient. "Is that Harry Potter?" Miranda nodded grimly. "It is. And I've detected multiple memory charms on him." She hesitated. 47 of them, to be exact. 47. Brightwell repeated incredulously. "That's not possible. The mind of a child that age would be severely damaged by even a handful of memory charms." "These aren't standard obliviates," Miranda explained, showing him the diagnostic results. "They're targeted memory suppressions, designed to block specific memories without erasing them completely. They've been cast with extraordinary precision. I've never seen anything like it." Brightwell studied the magical signature embedded in the diagnostic results, his expression darkening. "Do you recognize this magical signature?" Miranda nodded, her voice dropping to just above a whisper. "It matches samples we have on file from previous cases involving Hogwarts students. It's Albus Dumbledore's." A tense silence fell over the room. Albus Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts, supreme mugwump of the International Confederation of Wizards, chief warlock of the Wizengamot, was perhaps the most respected wizard in Britain. To suggest he had cast dozens of memory charms on a child was beyond shocking. "Are you absolutely certain?" Brightwell asked finally. "The signature is unmistakable," Miranda confirmed. "And there's more. These charms are specifically targeting memories associated with strong positive emotions. Based on the pattern and age of the charms, I believe they were cast to suppress Harry's memories of his parents, particularly memories of being loved by them." Brightwell closed his eyes briefly. "That would explain the magical outburst. You're saying these charms are breaking down?" "Yes. The oldest ones have already begun to fracture, likely triggering the accidental magic episode. As they break, the memories are returning, causing significant neural stress." She met Brightwell's gaze directly. "Sir, we need to act quickly. The chaotic breakdown of these charms could cause permanent damage. What do you recommend?" "A controlled removal in stages, starting with the most unstable charms. We need to give his mind time to integrate the returning memories safely." Brightwell nodded. "Begin the procedure. I'll handle any political complications that arise." His expression hardened. "And Evergreen? Document everything meticulously. I have a feeling we're going to need irrefutable evidence." As Brightwell left to make some urgent fire calls, Miranda turned back to Harry, who had begun to stir slightly. The magical regeneration potion was starting to take effect. She gently placed a hand on his forehead, brushing back his unruly hair. "It's going to be okay, Harry," she promised softly. "We're going to help you remember." Harry drifted through darkness, fragments of memories swirling around him like snow in a blizzard. A woman's laugh. The smell of cinnamon. A deep voice reading a story. Strong arms lifting him high. Each fragment brought a wave of emotion so intense it hurt. He gradually became aware of voices nearby, unfamiliar voices speaking in low, urgent tones. Fear spiked through him. Had Uncle Vernon finally sent him away? Was he in some kind of hospital for freaks? "I think he's waking up," a woman's voice said, closer now. "Harry? Can you hear me?" With tremendous effort, Harry forced his heavy eyelids open. The world was a blur, they'd taken his glasses. But he could make out the shape of someone leaning over him, someone with dark hair pulled back from their face. "Here you go," the blurry figure said, gently placing his glasses on his face. The world snapped into focus, revealing a woman with kind eyes and a concerned expression wearing strange green robes. "Hello, Harry. My name is Healer Evergreen, Miranda, if you like. You're in St. Mungo's hospital." Harry tried to speak, but his throat felt raw. The woman, Miranda, helped him take a sip of water from a glass that seemed to float in midair. Hospital, he finally managed to croak. Did I do something bad? A shadow passed over Miranda's face. No, Harry. You didn't do anything bad. You had a very powerful burst of accidental magic. Do you remember what happened at your aunt and uncle's house? Fragments of memory flashed through Harry's mind, exploding lights, shattering windows, Uncle Vernon flying backward. He nodded slowly. Am I in trouble? Harry's heart was pounding now. They weren't drunks. They didn't die in a car crash. Miranda's eyes widened in shock. No, Harry. They absolutely were not. They were brave people who died protecting you from a very dark wizard. Something shifted in Harry's mind, like a door creaking open after being locked for years. Behind that door was a flash of green light, a high, cold laugh, and a woman's voice pleading, "Not Harry, please not Harry." I remembered something, Harry gasped. My mum was screaming. There was green light. Miranda nodded, her expression gentle but sad. That's one of the memories that was hidden from you, Harry. There are many more that are starting to come back. Hidden? Who hid my memories? Miranda hesitated, clearly choosing her words carefully. We found evidence that someone placed memory charms on you to make you forget certain things about your parents. Those charms are breaking down now, which is why you're starting to remember. Who would do that? Harry asked, struggling to understand. Why would someone make me forget my parents? That's what we're trying to figure out, Miranda said. But right now, the most important thing is helping you recover safely. Those memories coming back all at once could hurt you, so we're going to help them return slowly, okay? Harry nodded, though his mind was spinning with questions. Before he could ask another, the door to his room opened, and an elderly wizard with a long silver beard and half-moon spectacles swept in, wearing purple robes spangled with stars. Harry, my boy, the old wizard said, his blue eyes twinkling behind his glasses. I'm so relieved to see you awake. Miranda stiffened beside Harry's bed. Headmaster Dumbledore, she said coolly. I wasn't aware you'd been notified of Mr. Potter's condition. As his magical guardian, I should have been informed immediately, Dumbledore replied, his tone gentle but with an unmistakable note of reproof. I came as soon as I learned of the incident at the Dursleys. Harry felt a strange sensation in his mind as Dumbledore's eyes met his, like a subtle pressure behind his forehead. Instinctively, he looked away. I don't believe emergency contacts have been established yet, Miranda said, moving slightly to position herself between Harry and Dumbledore. And Mr. Potter is currently undergoing sensitive treatment that requires minimal disturbance. I'm sure you're providing excellent care, healer. Evergreen. Miranda Evergreen, pediatric magical trauma specialist. Ah, your reputation precedes you. Dumbledore smiled benignly. However, I must insist on a private word with Harry. There are security concerns regarding his placement that must be addressed immediately. I'm afraid that's not possible at this time, Miranda replied, her professional demeanor firmly in place despite the tension Harry could sense radiating from her. Mr. Potter is undergoing treatment for multiple memory charm damage. Any additional magical interference could compromise his recovery. Dumbledore's twinkling eyes suddenly sharpened. Memory charm damage, you say? I wasn't aware of any such diagnosis. It was discovered during our standard diagnostic procedures, Miranda explained, subtly shifting to block Dumbledore's direct line of sight to Harry. We've identified 47 distinct memory charms placed on Mr. Potter, targeting specific emotional memories of his parents. Dumbledore's face remained composed, but Harry thought he saw a flicker of something, alarm. Concern. Crossed the old wizard's features. A most concerning discovery, Dumbledore said smoothly. All the more reason I should be involved in his treatment planning. As his magical guardian, your guardianship status is currently under review, interrupted a new voice. A severe-looking witch with a monocle had entered the room, accompanied by two people in red robes. Given the nature of the memory charms discovered and their magical signature, Madam Bones, Dumbledore acknowledged, his voice still calm though his eyes had lost their twinkle. This is an unexpected pleasure. I doubt that, Albus, the witch replied dryly. I've just come from viewing Healer Evergreen's preliminary findings. I think we need to have a conversation, away from young Mr. Potter. Harry watched this exchange with growing confusion and a strange sense that something important was happening, something that concerned him deeply but that the adults were talking around rather than directly addressing. Who are you? He blurted out, looking at the stern witch with the monocle. She turned to him, her severe expression softening slightly. Amelia Bones, Director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, Mr. Potter. Think of me as the magical equivalent of a police chief. Are you here because I broke the Dursleys' house? Harry asked anxiously. No, child. I'm here because someone may have broken the law regarding your well-being. She turned back to Dumbledore. Shall we continue this discussion in private, Albus? Dumbledore hesitated, his eyes returning to Harry with an intensity that made the boy shrink back slightly into his pillows. Of course, Amelia. Though I maintain this is all a misunderstanding that could be quickly resolved if, now, Albus, Madam Bones said firmly. With a last, lingering look at Harry, Dumbledore followed Madam Bones and the red-robed figures, Aurors, Harry would later learn, from the room. As soon as they were gone, Miranda let out a long breath. Well, that was interesting. Who was that man? The one with the beard? Harry asked. Albus Dumbledore. He's the headmaster of Hogwarts, the magical school you'll attend when you're 11, and a very powerful and influential wizard. She paused, seeming to debate how much to tell him. He's also the one who placed you with your aunt and uncle after your parents died. Harry frowned, processing this information. And, is he the one who put the memory charms on me? Miranda hesitated before answering honestly. Yes, Harry. The magical signature on the memory charms matches his. But why would he do that? Harry's voice cracked slightly. Why would he make me forget my parents? I don't know, Miranda admitted. But we're going to find out. And more importantly, we're going to help you remember what was taken from you. Harry nodded, feeling a strange mixture of fear, confusion, and something that might have been hope. I want to remember them, he whispered. Even if it hurts. Miranda squeezed his hand gently. We'll start the process tonight, with the oldest charms first. They're already breaking down anyway, so it's safer to remove them in a controlled manner. Will it hurt? It might be uncomfortable, she said honestly. But I'll be with you the whole time, and we can stop if it gets too difficult. Harry squared his small shoulders. I can handle it. I want to know about my mum and dad. Miranda smiled sadly. You're very brave, Harry Potter. Your parents would be proud. The simple statement brought unexpected tears to Harry's eyes. No one had ever suggested his parents would be proud of him before. In a conference room several floors above Harry's hospital room, Albus Dumbledore found himself in the uncomfortable position of being questioned rather than consulted. Across the table sat Amelia Bones, her monocle glinting in the light as she reviewed the medical reports before her. 47 memory charms, Albus, she said without preamble. All bearing your magical signature. All targeting the boy's memories of his parents' affection. Would you care to explain? Dumbledore steepled his fingers. The situation is more complex than it appears, Amelia. Then enlighten me, she replied coolly. When Harry survived the killing curse, he was left with more than just a scar. The connection between him and Voldemort, he ignored the slight flinch from the junior Auror in the corner, is complex and potentially dangerous. The boy's memories of that night contained magical residue that could have been harmful to his developing mind. And that required 47 separate memory charms? Amelia asked skeptically. According to Healer Evergreen's report, the earliest charms were placed when he was 15 months old, shortly after his parents' deaths, and the most recent less than a year ago. This appears to be an ongoing program of memory suppression, not a one-time emergency intervention. Dumbledore sighed heavily. Harry Potter is not an ordinary child, Amelia. His destiny is not yours to manipulate, she cut in sharply. No matter what prophecies or destinies you believe in, you had no legal right to modify his memories, especially not repeatedly over years. I am his magical guardian, Dumbledore reminded her. Appointed by the Wisengamot. Under false pretenses, it would seem, Amelia countered. You testified that you were placing him in a loving home where he would be protected. The medical scan reveals evidence of physical neglect bordering on abuse, malnutrition, and psychological trauma. Did you ever check on his welfare, Albus? A tense silence followed this question. Finally, Dumbledore spoke. I had monitoring charms in place. I was aware that his upbringing was austere. But the blood protection provided by his mother's sacrifice could only be maintained if he lived with her sister. His physical safety from Death Eaters had to take precedence. Amelia's expression hardened. And the memory charms? How exactly did removing his memories of being loved by his parents contribute to his safety? For perhaps the first time in their long acquaintance, Amelia saw Albus Dumbledore at a loss for words. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter, almost regretful. Harry Potter may one day have to make great sacrifices for our world. I still believe, that certain attachments might make that more difficult for him when the time comes. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Are you saying, Amelia said slowly, each word precise and cutting, that you deliberately erased a child's memories of parental love to make him more willing to sacrifice himself in some future confrontation with you-know-who? Dumbledore didn't answer directly. Everything I have done has been for the greater good, Amelia. For the protection of our world. That's not your decision to make, she replied, closing the file with a decisive snap. Effective immediately, your guardianship of Harry Potter is suspended pending a full investigation. The Wisengamot will convene an emergency session to review this matter. You're making a grave mistake, Dumbledore said, his usual twinkling demeanor replaced by something colder. Harry Potter must return to his relatives for his own protection. That will be determined by proper authorities, Amelia countered, rising from her seat. In the meantime, you are not to approach or attempt to communicate with Harry Potter without supervision. Is that clear? Dumbledore also rose, drawing himself up to his full, impressive height. I have only ever acted in Harry's best interests. Then you have nothing to fear from an investigation, Amelia replied evenly. Good day, Albus. As Dumbledore swept from the room, his colorful robes billowing behind him, Amelia turned to the senior Auror who had remained silent throughout the exchange. Scrimgeour, I want a guard on Potter's room around the clock. No one gets in without Healer Evergreen's approval, not even Dumbledore. Yes, Director, the lion-like man replied. Do you really think Dumbledore would try to interfere with the boy's treatment? Amelia's expression was grim as she gathered her papers. I don't know anymore. And that's what worries me most. Night had fallen by the time Miranda returned to Harry's room, accompanied by an older healer with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner whom she introduced as Master Healer Thornfield, a specialist in memory charm damage. We're going to start with just 3 of the oldest charms tonight, Miranda explained to Harry, who was sitting up in bed, nervously fiddling with the edge of his blanket. These are already fragmenting, which is why you've had some memory flashes already. Will I remember everything all at once? Harry asked. Master Healer Thornfield shook his head. Memory doesn't work that way, young man. We'll remove the charms, but your mind will need time to process and integrate the memories. They'll likely come back in pieces, some immediately, some over the next few days or even weeks. Harry nodded, trying to look braver than he felt. What do I need to do? Just lie back and try to relax, Miranda instructed, helping him into a comfortable position. We'll do all the work. If at any point it becomes too overwhelming, just say, "Stop," and we'll pause immediately. Harry took a deep breath and closed his eyes as instructed. He felt Miranda's cool hand on his forehead, steadying him. "Ready?" she asked softly. "Ready," he whispered. He heard the healers begin to murmur complicated incantations, felt the gentle tap of a wand against his temple, and then, he was lying in a crib, looking up at Mobile with tiny snitches and broomsticks spinning above him. A woman with dark red hair and brilliant green eyes leaned over him, her smile so full of love it made his chest ache. "There's my sweet boy," she cooed, reaching down to tickle his tummy. "Did you have a good nap?" Baby Harry gurgled happily, reaching up to grab a strand of her hair. "Gentle, love," she laughed, carefully extracting her hair from his grip. "You've got your father's grabby hands, you do." As if summoned by her words, a man appeared beside her, tall with unruly black hair and glasses, grinning down at Harry with unmistakable pride. "Has he been showing off his lung power again?" the man, his father, asked, wrapping an arm around his mother's waist. "No, he's been an absolute angel," she replied, leaning into his embrace while keeping her eyes on Harry. "Unlike his father." James clutched his chest in mock offense. "You wound me, Mrs. Potter." "You'll survive, Mr. Potter," she replied with a smirk before leaning down to lift Harry from his crib. "Won't Dada survive my terrible teasing, Harry?" "Yes, he will, because he's a big strong wizard, isn't he?" James laughed, reaching out to take Harry from her arms. "Come here, son. Let me show you something brilliant." He carried Harry to the window, pointing out at the garden where autumn leaves were falling. With a wave of his wand, James sent the leaves swirling up in a miniature whirlwind of red and gold. Baby Harry squealed in delight, his little hands reaching toward the magical display. "James, he's too young to remember this," Lily said, though she was smiling as she joined them at the window. "Nonsense," James replied confidently. "My son is a genius. He'll remember everything important, won't you, Harry? You'll remember that your mom and dad love you more than anything in the world." The memory faded, and Harry became aware of tears streaming down his face. The ache in his chest wasn't pain, it was love and grief so tangled together he couldn't separate them. "Harry?" Miranda's voice came to him as if from a great distance. "Are you all right?" "They loved me," Harry whispered, his voice breaking. "They really loved me." "Yes," Miranda confirmed gently. "They did." "Keep going," Harry said, wiping his eyes. "Please. I want to remember more." The healers exchanged a glance before continuing with the next charm. Again, Harry felt the gentle tap of a wand, heard the murmured incantations, and then, he was in a kitchen, sitting in a high chair. His mother was making dinner, humming softly as she chopped vegetables the Muggle way. "Mama," baby Harry called, banging his small hands on the tray of his chair. She turned, smiling. "Yes, my love. Are you getting impatient?" As if to answer, Harry's stuffed toy Snitch, which had been sitting on the counter, suddenly zoomed through the air and into his waiting hands. Lily's eyes widened. "James," she called. "James. Come quick." There was the sound of running footsteps, and James burst into the kitchen, wand drawn. "What is it? What's wrong?" Harry just performed his first intentional magic. Lily exclaimed, beaming with pride. He summoned his toy from across the room. James's face transformed from alarm to delight. He rushed to Harry, sweeping him up from the high chair and spinning him around. "That's my boy. Not even a year old and already doing magic. You're going to be the most powerful wizard of your generation." "James, be careful, you'll make him dizzy," Lily admonished, though she was laughing. James slowed his spinning but continued to beam at Harry with unmistakable pride. "We need to document this momentous occasion," he declared. "Where's that camera Sirius gave us?" "I think it's in the living room," Lily replied. "But honestly, James, he's just going to think you're being silly again." "Silly? Silly? This is history in the making, woman," James exclaimed with exaggerated indignation. He held Harry up to his face, nose to nose. "Your mother thinks this is just an ordinary day, Harry, but you and I know better, don't we? This is the day everyone will look back on when you're Minister for Magic or winning awards for groundbreaking magical research or captaining England to the Quidditch World Cup." Lily rolled her eyes fondly. "At least let me finish making dinner before you plan his entire future." James grinned, settling Harry on his hip. "Fine, fine. Harry and I will go find the camera ourselves, won't we, son? And maybe we'll practice a few more spells while we're at it. No teaching him to levitate the cat, James Potter," Lily called after them as they left the kitchen. "I mean it. Wouldn't dream of it," James called back, though he winked conspiratorially at Harry. "We'll start with something simpler, like changing Mummy's hair color again." The memory faded more gently this time, leaving Harry with a strange, bittersweet feeling. He opened his eyes to find Miranda watching him closely. "Another good one?" she asked softly. Harry nodded, unable to speak around the lump in his throat. These people, these loving, laughing people, were his parents. They had wanted him. They had been proud of him. Everything the Dursleys had told him had been a lie. "One more for tonight," Master Healer Thornfield said gently. "Then you'll need to rest." Harry nodded again, closing his eyes as the healers began the incantation for the third time. This time, when the memory came, it was different, less distinct, more like fragments of many small moments stitched together: bath time with his mother, splashing in bubbles that changed color when he touched them. His father carrying him on his shoulders around a garden, making whooshing noises as if they were flying. A big black dog that transformed into a laughing man with long dark hair, who tossed Harry into the air and caught him expertly. A tired-looking man with scars on his face, reading stories and doing different voices for each character. A plump woman with red hair cooing over him while a horde of red-headed children peered curiously at him. His mother singing softly as she rocked him to sleep, her voice gentle and sweet. His father teaching him to say, Quidditch, and cheering wildly when he managed something closer to, Quish. When Harry opened his eyes this time, he felt different, as if something fundamental had shifted inside him. The emptiness that had been with him for as long as he could remember had been partially filled with something warm and real. "I had people who loved me," he said wonderingly. "Not just my parents. Others too." Miranda smiled, though her eyes were suspiciously bright. "Yes, Harry. You were surrounded by love." "Who were they?" "The other people I remembered, the man who turned into a dog, and the man who read stories, and the family with all the red hair. I believe the man who transformed was probably Sirius Black, your godfather," Miranda said carefully. "The other man might have been Remus Lupin. They were your father's best friends. And the family with red hair sounds like the Weasleys, they were members of the Order of the Phoenix with your parents during the war." Harry frowned. "Where are they now? Why didn't any of them take me instead of the Dursleys?" Miranda and Master Healer Thornfield exchanged a glance. "That's a complicated question," Miranda finally said. "One that I think a lot of people are going to be asking in the coming days. But for now, you need to rest and let these memories settle. We'll do more work tomorrow." Harry wanted to protest, to demand more answers immediately, but he suddenly realized how exhausted he was. The memory recovery had taken more out of him than he'd realized. "Will you stay?" he asked Miranda as his eyelids grew heavy. "Just for a bit?" "Of course," she promised, pulling up a chair beside his bed. "I'll be right here." As Harry drifted toward sleep, more fragments of memories floated through his mind: his mother's laugh, his father's hands tossing him into the air, the feeling of absolute security that comes from knowing you are loved completely and unconditionally. For the first time in his memory, Harry Potter fell asleep without fear, without loneliness, without the gnawing emptiness that had been his constant companion at the Dursleys. Instead, he fell asleep with the certainty that he had been loved, deeply, fiercely loved, and that knowledge changed everything. In her office at St. Mungo's, Miranda Evergreen carefully documented the evening's procedure. Her hands shook slightly as she wrote, partly from magical exhaustion after the delicate work of removing the charms, but mostly from anger. The boy sleeping down the hall had been systematically robbed of his most precious memories, memories that should have been his foundation, his comfort through the difficult years of growing up without his parents. Instead, he had been left with nothing but a void, believing himself unwanted and unloved. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. She looked up to find Amelia Bones standing in the doorway, looking as tired as Miranda felt. "May I come in?" Amelia asked. Miranda nodded, setting aside her quill. "How did the meeting with Dumbledore go?" Amelia sighed heavily as she took a seat. "About as well as you might expect. He justifies everything as necessary for the greater good and Harry's protection. But he didn't deny placing the memory charms." "Of course he didn't," Miranda said bitterly. "His magical signature is all over them. No point denying what can be proven. How is the boy?" "We've removed the 3 oldest charms. The memories are already integrating, all centered around his parents' love for him." Miranda shook her head. "Amelia, he had no idea. He thought his parents were drunks who died in a car crash and didn't want him." Amelia's monocle nearly fell from her eye. "What? Who told him such nonsense?" "His aunt and uncle, apparently. The same people Dumbledore insisted he had to live with." Miranda's voice hardened. "The same people who kept him in a cupboard and let their son use him as a punching bag." Amelia was silent for a long moment, her face a mask of controlled fury. "The Dursleys will be dealt with," she finally said. "And Dumbledore will answer for his actions before the Wizengamot. But our priority now must be Harry's recovery and placement." "He can't go back there," Miranda said firmly. "Not to the Dursleys. Not ever." "Agreed," Amelia nodded. "But Dumbledore's arguments about blood protection can't be entirely dismissed. You know whose followers are still out there, and many would love nothing more than to get their hands on the boy who lived." "There must be other options," Miranda insisted. "Other relatives, perhaps. Or his godfather that he remembered." A shadow crossed Amelia's face. "Sirius Black is unavailable." She hesitated before continuing. "He's in Azkaban for betraying the Potters to you-know-who and killing 13 people." Miranda stared at her in shock. "But that can't be right. If Black betrayed the Potters, why would Harry have fond memories of him? And why would Dumbledore need to suppress those memories?" Amelia's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "A very good question, Healer Evergreen. One of many that need answering." She stood, straightening her robes. "I need to return to the ministry, there's much to prepare before the emergency Wizengamot session. Will you keep me informed of Harry's progress?" "Of course," Miranda agreed. "We'll continue removing the charms gradually over the next few days. Though I'm concerned about Dumbledore attempting to interfere. I've posted Aurors outside his room, and Scrimgeour himself will oversee the night shift." Amelia's expression was grim. Even Dumbledore wouldn't be foolish enough to challenge the DMLE directly. After Amelia left, Miranda finished her documentation and headed back to check on Harry one last time before going home for a few hours of rest. She found him sleeping peacefully, a small smile on his face. In the dim light of the hospital room, she could see the clear resemblance to James Potter in his features. But it was Lily's eyes behind those closed lids, eyes that had looked at her with such hope and wonder as memories of love returned. "We'll fix this," she promised softly. "Whatever it takes, we'll give you back what was taken from you." As if he had heard her, Harry's smile deepened in his sleep. Miranda turned to leave, nearly colliding with a tall figure who had entered silently behind her. "Professor Snape," she gasped, recognizing the Dour Potions master from her own days at Hogwarts. "What are you doing here?" Severus Snape's black eyes moved past her to the sleeping child, his expression unreadable. Dumbledore sent me to assess the situation. I'm afraid visiting hours are over, Miranda said firmly, moving to block his path. And Mr. Potter has authorized visitors. Snape's lip curled slightly. I have no interest in visiting Potter. I merely need to confirm his condition for the headmaster. You can tell the headmaster that Mr. Potter is recovering from the memory charms placed on him, Miranda replied, keeping her voice low but intense. Memory charms that deliberately removed his recollections of being loved by Lily and James Potter. Something flashed in Snape's eyes at the mention of Lily's name, something that looked almost like pain before his expression shuddered again. Is that what the healers are claiming? He asked, his voice carefully neutral. It's what we've proven, Miranda countered. We've already removed 3 of the oldest charms. Would you like to see the memories that return to him? His mother singing to him. His father teaching him to say, Quidditch. The people who loved him that he was made to forget. Snape had gone very still, his sallow face even paler than usual. That won't be necessary, he said stiffly. Then please leave. Mr. Potter needs rest, and I'll not have anyone disturbing him, especially not on Dumbledore's behalf. For a moment, Miranda thought Snape might argue. But instead, he gave her a curt nod and turned to leave. At the door, however, he paused. These memory charms, he said without turning around. They were specifically targeted at happy memories. Yes, Miranda confirmed. Particularly memories of parental love and affection. Snape was silent for a long moment. I see, he finally said, so quietly she barely heard him. Then, without another word, he swept from the room, his black robes billowing behind him. Miranda watched him go, wondering about his strange reaction. But her exhaustion was catching up with her, and she had an early morning ahead. With a final glance at Harry, she left to grab a few hours of sleep before returning to continue the delicate work of giving Harry Potter back his past. As the door closed behind her, Harry shifted in his sleep, murmuring something that sounded like, Mom. In his dreams, Lily Potter smiled at him, her green eyes, his eyes, full of the love that no memory charm could permanently erase. And somewhere in the depths of the hospital, a silver doe Patronus raced away from the dungeons of Hogwarts, carrying a message that would change everything. Chapter 2, The Unraveling. Minerva McGonagall had seen Albus Dumbledore angry exactly 3 times in their decades-long association. The first was during the height of the war with Voldemort, when a spy had betrayed the location of the Pruitt brothers to Death Eaters. The second was the night Lily and James Potter died. The third was right now, as he paced his office, magic crackling visibly around him. 47 memory charms, Dumbledore muttered. How could they possibly have detected all of them? The later ones were practically undetectable. McGonagall sat rigidly in her chair, her face pale with shock. She'd come to the headmaster's office expecting their usual evening meeting about start-of-term preparations. Instead, she'd found him in this state, muttering about Harry Potter and memory charms. Albus, she said, her Scottish brogue more pronounced with stress. What exactly have you done? Dumbledore stopped pacing and looked at her as if just remembering she was there. What was necessary, Minerva? Always what was necessary. Are you saying you actually placed memory charms on Harry Potter? A child? Before Dumbledore could answer, the office door burst open. Severus Snape swept in, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. You erased Lily's love from her son's mind. Snape's voice was deadly quiet. You made the boy forget he was loved. McGonagall gasped. Albus, tell me this isn't true. Dumbledore sank into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 100+ years. You don't understand. Neither of you understand the burden of knowing what I know. Then enlighten us, McGonagall demanded, rising to her feet. Explain why you would commit such a violation against James and Lily's child. Dumbledore sighed deeply. Harry Potter is not an ordinary boy. His connection to Voldemort, the prophecy. McGonagall interrupted. What does that have to do with erasing the boy's memories of his parents? Everything, Dumbledore said quietly. The prophecy suggests Harry may need to make the ultimate sacrifice to defeat Voldemort when he returns. I merely prepared him for that possibility. The silence that followed was deafening. McGonagall sank back into her chair, her face ashen. You took away his memories of being loved, she whispered, to make it easier for him to die when the time comes. To make it easier for him to do what must be done, Dumbledore corrected gently. A boy who knows the fierce protective love of parents might hesitate to embrace his destiny. Harry needed to be moldable. You're insane, Snape hissed, his hands clenching into fists. Completely and utterly insane. I've made many difficult choices in my life, Severus. This was merely one more. McGonagall found her voice again. And placing him with those awful muggles. Was that also to make him more moldable? A flicker of something, perhaps shame, crossed Dumbledore's face. The blood protection was real, Minerva. But yes, I needed Harry to be grateful when he entered our world. Eager to please. Willing to follow guidance. My guidance. The words hung in the air, unspoken but understood. McGonagall stood, drawing herself up to her full height. I've stood by you through many things, Albus. I've trusted your judgment even when I disagreed with it. But this is unforgivable. Minerva, no, she cut him off. I won't hear it. That boy was left in our care. James and Lily trusted us to protect their son if anything happened to them. And instead, you violated his mind and left him with abusive relatives to make him easier to manipulate. You don't understand the greater, if you say greater good to me right now, Albus Dumbledore, I swear on Merlin's grave I will transfigure you into a chamber pot, McGonagall snapped, her Scottish brogue thick with fury. Dumbledore fell silent, watching her with those piercing blue eyes. What happens now? Snape asked, his voice carefully controlled. The healers at St. Mungo's have begun removing the memory charms, Dumbledore replied. Amelia Bones has suspended my guardianship and called for an emergency session of the Wizengamot. Good, McGonagall said firmly. And where does that leave Harry? Vulnerable, Dumbledore insisted. Without the blood protection of his aunt's home, he'll be safer than he ever was with those people, McGonagall cut in. I told you they were the worst sort of muggles. Did you ever check on him? Even once in 5 years? Dumbledore's silence was answer enough. I'm going to St. Mungo's, McGonagall announced, moving toward the door. That boy deserves to have someone on his side for once. Minerva, I must ask you not to interfere, Dumbledore said, his voice taking on the authoritative tone that had cowed ministry officials and dark wizards alike. McGonagall merely looked at him, her disappointment palpable. You lost the right to ask anything of me when you decided to erase a child's memories of his parents' love. She turned to leave, then paused, looking back at Snape. Are you coming, Severus? Snape's eyes darted between McGonagall and Dumbledore, clearly torn between his long-time allegiances. It's what Lily would want, McGonagall said quietly. That seemed to decide it. With a curt nod, Snape moved to join her. Severus, Dumbledore called, his voice holding a warning. Remember your vow. Snape paused at the door. My vow was to protect Lily's son, he said coldly. It seems I need to protect him from you as well. As the door closed behind them, Dumbledore slumped in his chair, suddenly looking frail and defeated. On his perch, Fawkes trilled a sad, questioning note. I did what I thought was necessary, Dumbledore told the Phoenix quietly. For the greater good. But for perhaps the first time in many years, the words sounded hollow even to him. Harry woke to sunlight streaming through the windows of his hospital room, feeling strangely rested despite the emotional upheaval of the previous evening. For a moment, he just lay there, savoring the unfamiliar sensation of waking up in a real bed, in a room with actual windows, without Aunt Petunia's shrill voice ordering him to make breakfast. The memories he'd recovered floated in his mind like treasures he could examine at will, his mother's smile, his father's laughter, the absolute certainty that he had been loved. The knowledge filled an emptiness inside him he hadn't even realized was there. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Miranda entered, looking fresher than she had the night before, carrying a tray with breakfast. "Good morning, Harry," she said brightly. "How are you feeling?" Harry sat up, accepting the tray she placed across his lap. "Good. Better than good, actually." "Any headaches? Confusion? Disorientation?" Harry shook his head. "Just happy, I think." He looked down at the breakfast, proper breakfast with eggs and toast and sausages, not just the scraps the Dursleys allowed him. "I keep thinking about them. My parents. It's like finding something I didn't know was missing." Miranda smiled, sitting on the edge of his bed. "That's a very good sign. It means your mind is integrating the memories naturally." Harry took a bite of toast, savoring the simple fact that he was allowed to eat until he was full. "When can we remove more of the charms?" "We'll do another session this afternoon," Miranda promised. "But first, there are some people here to see you, if you feel up to visitors." Harry tensed slightly. "Is it him? Dumbledore?" "No," Miranda assured him quickly. "He's not allowed to see you without supervision from the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. These are professors from Hogwarts, Professor McGonagall and Professor Snape. They've expressed concern for your welfare." Harry frowned. "Why would they care about me? They don't even know me." "They knew your parents," Miranda explained gently. "Professor McGonagall taught them both at Hogwarts, and Professor Snape was at school with them." Harry's eyes widened. "They knew my mum and dad. Can I see them? Please." Miranda smiled at his enthusiasm. "Finish your breakfast first, and I'll send them in." Harry ate with unusual speed, eager to meet people who had known his parents. As Miranda cleared away his tray, she gave him an assessing look. "Just remember, Harry, you don't have to talk about anything you don't want to. And if you get tired or uncomfortable, just say the word and I'll ask them to leave." Harry nodded, though he couldn't imagine wanting people who knew his parents to leave. A few minutes later, the door opened again to admit two figures, a tall, severe-looking witch with her hair pulled back in a tight bun, and a thin man with sallow skin and curtains of black hair framing a harsh face. "Mr. Potter," the witch said, her Scottish accent pronounced though her tone was gentle. "I am Professor Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress of Hogwarts and head of Gryffindor House, your parents' house when they were at school." "And I am Professor Severus Snape," the man added, his voice silky and controlled. "Potions Master and head of Slytherin House." Harry looked between them, drinking in the sight of people who had known James and Lily Potter. "You knew my parents?" he asked eagerly. "I taught them both for 7 years," Professor McGonagall said, taking the seat Miranda had vacated by his bed. "Your father was a talented Transfiguration student, when he applied himself, and a brilliant Quidditch player. Your mother was one of the brightest witches I've ever taught." "Quidditch?" Harry asked, the unfamiliar word triggering something in his recovered memories. "My dad was teaching me to say that word." McGonagall's eyes softened. "Yes, James was Quidditch obsessed from the moment he arrived at Hogwarts. It's a wizarding sport played on broomsticks." "People really fly on broomsticks?" Harry asked, amazed. "Indeed they do, Mr. Potter," McGonagall confirmed with a small smile. "And your father was exceptional at it." Harry turned to Professor Snape, who had remained standing stiffly by the door. "Did you know my parents too, sir?" Something complicated flickered across Snape's face. "I knew your mother since before Hogwarts. We lived in the same town as children." "You did?" Harry leaned forward eagerly. "What was she like when she was little?" Snape seemed taken aback by the direct question. After a moment's hesitation, he answered, she was kind, brave, fiercely intelligent, and talented at magic even before she knew what it was. Like me, Harry said wonderingly. I did magic before I knew what it was too. Yes, Snape agreed, his voice strange. Like you. McGonagall cleared her throat. Mr. Potter, Harry, we've come to express our concern about what has happened to you. We've only just learned about the memory charms and other aspects of your situation. Harry's expression sobered. You mean living with the Dursleys? Among other things, McGonagall said carefully. I want you to know that had I been aware of your circumstances, I would have intervened long ago. Why wasn't anyone aware? Harry asked, the question that had been burning in him since the previous night. If my parents had friends, if they were important in the wizard world, why did no one check on me? McGonagall and Snape exchanged a glance. We were led to believe you were being well cared for, McGonagall admitted. That regular checks were being made on your welfare, and that you were growing up in a loving, if non-magical, home. Led to believe by Dumbledore, Harry guessed, surprising both professors with his perception. Yes, McGonagall confirmed. Many of us trusted Headmaster Dumbledore's assurances without verifying them ourselves, a mistake I deeply regret. Harry absorbed this, then asked the question that had been bothering him most. Why would he do it? Why make me forget my parents loved me? Another uncomfortable glance passed between the professors. That, Snape said carefully, is a question with a complex answer that may be difficult for someone your age to fully understand. I'm not stupid, Harry said, a flash of defiance in his eyes. No one is suggesting that, Mr. Potter, McGonagall assured him. But there are aspects of your connection to certain events that require delicate explanation. You mean why Voldemort tried to kill me? Harry asked bluntly. Both professors flinched at the name, but McGonagall recovered quickly. Yes, in part. How do you know about that? I remembered some of it last night, Harry said quietly. After you left, Professor Snape. I remembered a green light and a high laugh, and my mum begging someone not to kill me. Snape had gone very still, his face even paler than before. McGonagall looked stricken. I see, she said finally. Those are very difficult memories, Harry. But they're mine, Harry insisted. I want them back, all of them. Even the bad ones. McGonagall nodded slowly. I understand. And I believe you have that right. She straightened her shoulders, suddenly looking every inch the stern professor. That's why Professor Snape and I are here. We want to help ensure that no one interferes with your treatment and recovery. Even Dumbledore? Harry asked shrewdly. Especially Dumbledore, McGonagall confirmed. Harry looked between them, these two adults who had come to his aid seemingly out of nowhere. Why? Why would you help me? Because it's the right thing to do, McGonagall said simply. And because we owe it to your parents. Snape said nothing, but something in his black eyes, something like guilt or resolve, made Harry think there was more to his presence than McGonagall's explanation suggested. Before Harry could ask more questions, the door opened again to admit Miranda, accompanied by a woman Harry recognized from the previous night as Madame Bones. I see you've met our visitors, Miranda said, her tone carefully neutral as she assessed Harry's reaction to the professors. Harry nodded. They were telling me about my parents. Good, Miranda said with a warm smile. But I'm afraid I need to steal you away for a few minutes, Harry. Madame Bones needs to speak with you about some important legal matters. Harry looked uncertainly at McGonagall and Snape. Will you come back later? If you wish us to, McGonagall replied, clearly touched by his request. I do, Harry said firmly. I want to hear more about my mum and dad. As the professors took their leave, Harry caught a glimpse of something that might have been a smile on Snape's normally dour face. It transformed him completely, making Harry wonder what his mother had seen in the strange, stern man to be friends with him. Madam Bones took McGonagall's vacated chair, adjusting her monocle as she regarded Harry with a mix of compassion and professional distance. "Mr. Potter," she began, "I need to discuss some rather complicated legal matters with you. I'll try to explain everything as clearly as possible, but please stop me if anything is confusing. It's about who I'm going to live with now, isn't it?" Harry asked, getting straight to the point. "I'm not going back to the Dursleys, am I?" Madam Bones looked slightly surprised at his directness. "That's correct. Your placement with your aunt and uncle is under review, and given the evidence of neglect and mistreatment, it's highly unlikely you will be returned there." Relief washed over Harry like a physical sensation. "Good. However," Madam Bones continued, "this creates a complex legal situation. Until now, you've had two forms of guardianship, your Muggle guardians, the Dursleys, and your magical guardian, Albus Dumbledore." "Dumbledore was my guardian?" Harry asked, frowning. "But he never came to see me." "Not once." "That's part of the problem," Madam Bones acknowledged. "As your magical guardian, Professor Dumbledore had a duty to ensure your well-being in the magical world and to oversee your magical education and inheritance. The discovery of the memory charms, combined with the apparent failure to monitor your welfare at the Dursleys, has led to his guardianship being suspended." "So who's my guardian now?" "Temporarily, the Ministry has appointed me as your interim magical guardian, while my department investigates the circumstances of your previous guardianship arrangements." She paused, her expression softening slightly. "But this is a temporary measure, Harry. What we need to determine is what would be best for you in the long term." Harry considered this. "I have questions." "I expected you might," Madam Bones said with the hint of a smile. "Ask away." "Why didn't my parents will say who should take care of me?" Madam Bones looked troubled. "That's an excellent question, and one I've been asking myself. According to Ministry records, your parents' will was sealed by order of the Wisengamot shortly after their deaths. The chief warlock who ordered it sealed was Albus Dumbledore." Harry frowned. "Can you unseal it?" "I've already filed the paperwork to do exactly that," Madam Bones assured him. "As director of the DMLE, I have the authority to request unsealing in cases where criminal activity may be involved." "Criminal?" Harry repeated, eyes widening. "You mean what Dumbledore did to my memories?" "Among other concerns," Madam Bones confirmed. "Unauthorized memory charms are a serious offense in the wizarding world, Mr. Potter. Particularly when performed on a minor." Harry absorbed this information, his young mind working to process the implications. "What happens next?" "The Wisengamot will convene an emergency session tomorrow to review the evidence and determine next steps regarding both your guardianship and the potential charges against Albus Dumbledore." "Will I have to be there?" Harry asked nervously. "No," Madam Bones assured him. "You will remain here at St. Mungo's, continuing your treatment. I will represent your interests at the hearing." Harry nodded, relief evident on his face. "Good. I want to keep getting my memories back." "Speaking of which," Miranda interjected gently, "it's nearly time for your next memory charm removal session. Are you feeling up to it?" Harry nodded eagerly. "Yes. I want to remember more." Madam Bones rose from her seat. "Then I'll leave you to it. Rest assured, Mr. Potter, that you have the full support and protection of my department." As she turned to leave, Harry called after her, "Thank you for helping me." Madam Bones paused at the door, her normally stern expression softening. "You're welcome, Mr. Potter. It's long overdue." The Daily Prophet special evening edition hit wizarding homes across Britain just as families were sitting down to dinner. The headline, spanning the entire front page in bold black letters, caused many a witch or wizard to choke on their pumpkin juice, Boy Who subjected to 47 memory charms by Albus Dumbledore. Exclusive report by Rita Skeeter. In a shocking development that has rocked the foundations of Wizarding Britain, the Daily Prophet can exclusively reveal that Harry Potter, the boy who lived, was discovered to have been subjected to no fewer than 47 memory charms, all bearing the magical signature of Albus Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Young Mr. Potter, who has lived in obscurity in the Muggle world since the tragic deaths of his parents, was admitted to St. Mungo's Hospital following a severe episode of accidental magic. During routine diagnostic tests, healers discovered the memory charms, which sources close to the investigation describe as specifically targeting memories of parental love and affection. "It's absolutely unconscionable," said one healer, who requested anonymity due to the sensitive nature of the case. These charms were deliberately designed to make the boy forget how much his parents loved him. The question on everyone's lips: why would the revered leader of the light, Albus Dumbledore, systematically erase an orphan child's memories of his parents' love? The Ministry of Magic has suspended Dumbledore's magical guardianship of the boy who lived pending a full investigation. Amelia Bones, director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, has called an emergency session of the Wisingamat to address the matter. Meanwhile, sources report that young Mr. Potter's Muggle relatives, with whom he was placed after his parents' deaths, are under investigation for suspected neglect and abuse. This raises further questions about Dumbledore's judgment and oversight of the wizarding world's most famous orphan. If these allegations prove true, noted legal expert Leopold Grimstone told the Prophet, we could be looking at the most significant breach of magical guardian trust in a century. Continued on pages 2 to 7, exclusive details of the memory charms, reactions from the wizarding community, and analysis of the potential legal ramifications for the Hogwarts headmaster. In the Great Hall at Hogwarts, the evening edition caused an immediate stir among the staff who had remained for the summer. Professor Flitwick nearly fell off his chair. Professor Sprout gasped audibly. Hagrid, the gamekeeper, read the headline 3 times before crumpling the paper in his massive hands, tears welling in his beetle-black eyes. "It can't be true," he muttered. "Dumbledore wouldn't, he couldn't." At the far end of the table, Professor Quirrell, the newly appointed Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, observed the commotion with interest, a strange smile playing at the corners of his mouth as he absently adjusted his purple turban. Meanwhile, in wizarding homes across Britain, parents read the article with mounting horror, many embracing their own children a little tighter that night. In a decrepit house on the outskirts of Little Hangleton, a bent figure hunched over the paper, trembling hands clenching it so tightly the newsprint smeared. "Master," the figure whispered, "this could change everything." And in a cell in Azkaban prison, a gaunt man with long, matted black hair received his daily ration, completely unaware that events were unfolding that would soon shatter his world just as completely as it had been shattered 5 years before. Back at St. Mungo's, Harry Potter lay on his hospital bed, unaware of the political storm brewing around him. Master Healer Thornfield and Miranda Evergreen stood on either side of him, wands ready to begin the second round of memory charm removal. "We'll remove 5 charms this session," Miranda explained. "These are slightly newer than the ones we worked on yesterday, but they're still among the oldest layers." Harry nodded, closing his eyes as instructed. He felt the now familiar tap of a wand against his temple, heard the musical incantation, and then, "Padfoot, be careful with him," his mother scolded as the large black dog transformed mid-leap into a handsome man with long dark hair, who caught baby Harry expertly in his arms. "Relax, Lils," Sirius Black laughed, tossing Harry up in the air and catching him again as the baby squealed in delight. "My godson loves it. Don't you, Prongslet? He's going to get overexcited, and then who has to deal with it when he won't go down for his nap?" Lily asked, though she was fighting a smile. "Ah, but that's what godparents are for," said a gentle voice from the doorway. Harry turned his head to see a tired-looking young man with prematurely graying hair and scars on his face. "We get to wind them up and hand them back. Moony," Harry called, reaching out his little arms toward the newcomer. Remus Lupin's face lit up with pleasure as he crossed the room to take Harry from Sirius. "Hello there, cub. Have you been good for your mum and dad? He's been perfect, James said, entering from the kitchen with a tray of tea things. Aren't you always perfect for your dada? Harry babbled happily in response, reaching for his father's glasses. No, no, Harry, Lily laughed, gently intercepting his grab. Dada needs those to see. He's getting stronger, Sirius noted proudly. Little Tyke nearly pulled my hair out earlier. Going to be a proper menace on a broom someday. Not until he's at least 3, Lily said firmly. 2, James countered with a grin. 2.5, and that's my final offer, Lily compromised, rolling her eyes fondly. Remus bounced Harry gently in his arms, inhaling the baby's scent. He smells happy, he murmured. Your wolfy sense is telling you that, Moony? Sirius asked, flopping onto the sofa. Something like that, Remus agreed with a small smile. Lily took Harry from Remus and settled him on her hip. He should be happy. He's surrounded by people who love him. James came up behind her, wrapping his arms around both of them. The most loved baby in Britain, that's our Harry. The most loved baby in the world, Sirius corrected. In the universe, Remus added quietly. Harry looked around at the 4 adults, feeling their love surrounding him like the warmest, safest blanket imaginable. The memory faded, leaving Harry with tears streaming down his face, not tears of pain, but of overwhelming emotion. They called me Prongslet, he whispered. And Moony and Padfoot, they were there too. Your father's friends, Miranda confirmed gently. Sirius Black and Remus Lupin. Where are they now? Harry asked, the question he'd been wondering since the night before. Why didn't they take me when my parents died? Miranda and Master Healer Thornfield exchanged a glance. That's a complicated story, Miranda said carefully. One we don't have all the answers to yet. But the next memory might help you understand more. They proceeded with the next charm removal, and Harry felt himself falling into another recovered memory. He was sitting in a high chair, banging a spoon rhythmically against the tray. His father was making funny faces at him while his mother prepared something at the counter. James, can you watch the stew while I feed Harry? Lily asked. Of course, love, James replied, dropping a kiss on her cheek as they swapped places. Lily sat down facing Harry's high chair, a small bowl of mashed something in her hand. Open wide for the quaffle, Harry. Harry obligingly opened his mouth, accepting the spoonful of food. Good boy. Such a good eater, Lily praised. Not like your father who still picks out every single pea from his food. I maintain that peas are an abomination, James called from the stove. Lily rolled her eyes fondly before feeding Harry another spoonful. Ignore your silly daddy. Peas are delicious and full of good things to help you grow big and strong. A knock at the door interrupted the domestic scene. James immediately stiffened, his hand going to his wand. Are we expecting anyone? It's probably just Peter, Lily said. He said he might stop by today. James relaxed slightly but still moved cautiously to the door, wand at his side. After checking through the peephole, he visibly relaxed and opened the door to admit a short, somewhat plump young man with a nervous demeanor. Wormtail. Come in, James greeted him warmly. We were just having dinner. Have you eaten? And no, but I don't want to impose, Peter Pettigrew stuttered, his watery eyes darting around the room. Nonsense, Lily called from the table. There's plenty of stew. James, get Peter a bowl. Yes, dear, James said with an exaggerated bow that made Harry giggle. Peter approached the high chair, a strained smile on his face. Hello, Harry. Look how big you're getting. Harry stared at the man curiously but didn't reach for him as he did with Sirius or Remus. Something about Uncle Peter always made him feel slightly uneasy, though he was far too young to understand why. Any news from outside? James asked as he returned with a bowl of stew for Peter. Peter shook his head, taking the seat across from Lily. Nothing specific. The Dark Lord's forces are still recruiting, still striking fear. The usual. I hate this, Lily said quietly, continuing to feed Harry automatically. Living in hiding, jumping at shadows. This isn't the life I wanted for Harry. It won't be forever, James assured her, squeezing her shoulder. Once this war is over, we'll give Harry the childhood he deserves, Quidditch in the yard, trips to Diagon Alley, play dates with other magical children. I know, Lily sighed. I just wish. I wish we knew when it would end. It will end, Peter said, his voice strangely firm for once. Sooner than you might think. Something in his tone made both James and Lily look at him sharply, but Peter had already ducked his head to focus on his stew. How's the secret keeper arrangement working out? James asked after a moment, his voice deliberately casual. Sirius said it was better this way, but if it's too much pressure on you, it's fine, Peter said quickly. No one would suspect me anyway. Everyone knows Sirius is your best friend. That was the idea, James nodded. Still, if you ever feel it's too dangerous, I said it's fine, James, Peter interrupted with unusual force. Then, more gently, I want to do my part. For the Order. For you all. Lily reached across the table and squeezed Peter's hand. We're grateful, Peter. I know it can't be easy, carrying this responsibility. Peter's face twisted in a complicated expression before settling back into his usual nervous smile. Anything for my friends. The memory faded, leaving Harry with a strange sense of foreboding that he couldn't quite articulate. Something was wrong, he said slowly. With that man, Peter. He was acting strange. Miranda nodded, her expression grim. That was Peter Pettigrew, another of your father's friends from school. And yes, something was very wrong. What happened to him? We should continue with the memory charms, Master Healer Thornfield interjected gently. The connections will become clearer as more of your memories return. Harry nodded, closing his eyes again as they prepared for the third charm removal. This time, the memory that surfaced was different, darker, more fragmented. Raised voices downstairs woke him from his nap. Harry sat up in his crib, rubbing his eyes sleepily. Can't believe it, his father was saying, his voice angrier than Harry had ever heard it. After everything we've been through together. James, lower your voice, you'll wake Harry, his mother hushed. Sorry, but how am I supposed to react to this? Remus? Our Remus? We don't know anything for certain, his mother said, though she sounded troubled. Sirius is just suspicious because someone is passing information, and Remus has been away so often with the werewolf packs. But Moony? It doesn't make sense, Lils. He would never betray us. I don't want to believe it either, his mother admitted. But we have to consider every possibility. Dumbledore said, Dumbledore says a lot of things, his father interrupted. But he doesn't know Remus like we do. We thought we knew Peter too, but he's been acting strange lately, his mother pointed out. Everyone's acting strange. We're in the middle of a war, living in hiding, with a prophecy hanging over our son's head. I'd be more concerned if people weren't acting strange. There was a pause, and then his mother's voice again, softer. What did Sirius say about switching secret keepers? He thinks it's the perfect bluff. Everyone will assume he's our secret keeper, he is the obvious choice. No one would suspect Peter. And you trust Peter with this? Completely. I trust all the marauders with my life, his father said firmly. With your life. With Harry's life. His mother sighed. All right. If you and Sirius both think it's best, we'll make the switch. But James? Let's not tell anyone else. Not even Dumbledore. Agreed. The fewer people who know, the safer we'll be. Upstairs in his crib, Harry didn't understand the conversation, only that his parents sounded worried. He began to whimper, wanting the comfort of his mother's arms. Almost immediately, he heard footsteps on the stairs, and his mother appeared in the doorway, her face softening as she saw him awake. "Hello, my darling," she said, all tension gone from her voice as she lifted him from the crib. "Did you have a good nap?" Harry snuggled into her neck, inhaling the familiar scent of her hair. As long as his mother held him, everything felt safe and right in his world. "Mama loves you, Harry," she whispered, pressing a kiss to his forehead. "No matter what happens, never forget that. We will always love you." The memory dissolved, leaving Harry with a profound sense of unease. "They were afraid," he murmured. "Something was wrong. They changed something important, but I don't understand what." "A secret keeper is part of a very powerful magic called the Fidelius charm," Miranda explained. "It hides a location completely, making it impossible to find unless the secret keeper voluntarily reveals its whereabouts. And my parents had this charm on our house. To hide from Voldemort?" Miranda nodded, ignoring Harry's casual use of the name that made most wizards flinch. "Yes. And it seems they changed their secret keeper from Sirius Black to Peter Pettigrew." Harry frowned. "But that doesn't make sense with what Madame Bones said. She told me Sirius Black was in prison for betraying my parents." "Exactly," Miranda said quietly. "Which suggests something went very wrong with the official investigation after your parents' deaths." Harry's eyes widened as understanding dawned. If Peter was really the secret keeper, not Sirius, then an innocent man may have been in Azkaban, wizard prison, for 5 years, Miranda confirmed grimly. "But let's continue with the memory charms. We're learning important things." The fourth memory was brief but poignant. His mother was singing softly as she rocked him to sleep. Outside the nursery window, rain pattered gently against the glass. His father stood in the doorway, watching them with a tender expression. "And although the night, my love will watch over you," his mother sang, her sweet voice lulling Harry toward sleep. As his eyelids grew heavy, he heard his father move into the room. "He's nearly asleep," his mother whispered. "You have the magic touch," his father replied softly. No lullaby charm could ever compare to his mother's voice. "I wish we could give him a normal life, James," his mother said, her voice tinged with sadness. "Without prophecies and hiding in Dark Lords." "We will," his father promised. "This war won't last forever. And when it's over, we'll have more children, a whole Quidditch team of them. Harry will be the big brother, showing them all how it's done." "A Quidditch team," his mother laughed quietly. "I think 3 or 4 will be plenty." "4, then," his father agreed easily. 2 boys and 2 girls. "You sound very certain about that," his mother teased. "I'm certain about us," his father said, his voice suddenly serious. "About our family. About our future. We're going to get through this, Lily. All of us. Together." "Together," his mother echoed, leaning into his father's embrace as Harry finally drifted off to sleep, surrounded by his parents' love. This memory left Harry with a bittersweet ache in his chest. They had planned for more children, for a future that never came. He would have had brothers and sisters if Voldemort hadn't destroyed their family. Before he could dwell on this too long, the healers moved on to the 5th and final memory charm of the session, Harry. "Harry, look at Mummy. Look at Mummy, love." His mother's face filled his vision, her green eyes wide with fear but her voice steady. Behind her, he could hear banging and shouting from downstairs. "Remember that Mummy loves you. Daddy loves you. You are so, so loved, Harry." She pressed something into his hand, a small, smooth stone with strange markings carved into it. "Keep this safe," she whispered. "It belonged to Daddy's family. Someday you'll understand." The door to the nursery burst open, and his father appeared, his face pale but determined. "They're here. The wards are falling." He crossed to them in 2 long strides, dropping to his knees beside the crib. "The flu's blocked. You need to take Harry and run." "James, no, Lily, please. I'll hold him off as long as I can." Get Harry to safety. His father reached into the crib, pressing a fierce kiss to Harry's forehead. I love you, son. More than anything in this world. Be brave. He turned to his mother then, kissing her with desperate passion. Go. Now. His mother clutched Harry to her chest, tears streaming down her face. I love you, James. I love you both. Now go. But it was too late. A tremendous crash shook the house, and his father's face went white. He's broken through the last ward. Lily, take Harry, and go. It's him. I'll hold him off. His mother fled the room with Harry in her arms, but instead of heading for the stairs, she ran back into the nursery, slamming and locking the door behind her. She placed Harry in his crib and began frantically waving her wand in complex patterns, murmuring incantations in a language Harry didn't recognize. From downstairs came the sound of a duel, crashes, bangs, shouted spells, and then an awful silence, followed by the sound of slow footsteps on the stairs. No, 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 his mother whispered, her wand work becoming more frantic. Not James. Please not James. The nursery door blasted open, and a tall figure in a black cloak stood in the doorway. His face was pale, almost inhuman, with gleaming red eyes. His mother threw herself in front of the crib, arms spread wide. Not Harry, please not Harry. Stand aside, you silly girl, stand aside now. Not Harry, please no, take me, kill me instead, this is my last warning, not Harry. Please, have mercy, have mercy. Not Harry. Not Harry. Please, I'll do anything, a high, cold laugh and then, Avada Kedavra. A flash of green light, his mother crumpling to the floor, and then the red-eyed man was looming over his crib, raising a white, skeletal hand with a wand pointed directly at Harry's forehead, Avada Kedavra. Another flash of green light, a burning pain in his forehead, and then the strange sensation of something rebounding, the red-eyed man's look of shock, a terrible scream, and then darkness and silence, broken only by the sound of Harry's own crying. Harry came back to awareness with a gasp, his small body shaking with sobs. Miranda was holding him, murmuring soothing words he couldn't quite process. You're safe, Harry. You're safe. It's just a memory. It can't hurt you now. He killed them, Harry choked out. I saw it. I remember. He killed them and they died protecting me. Yes, Miranda said gently, still holding him. They did. They loved you that much. Harry continued to cry, but through the tears, something else was crystallizing inside him, something hard and bright and unbreakable. His parents hadn't died in a car crash. They hadn't abandoned him. They had faced death rather than step aside and let him be killed. They had loved him enough to die for him. As the worst of the storm passed, Harry wiped his eyes and looked up at Miranda. I want to see Dumbledore, he said with surprising firmness. Miranda blinked in surprise. Dumbledore? Why? Because I have questions. And he has answers. Harry's young face was set in determined lines that suddenly made him look much older than his 6 years. He took these memories from me. I want to know why. Miranda and Master Healer Thornfield exchanged concerned glances. Harry, I'm not sure that's a good idea right now, Miranda said carefully. You've had a very emotional session, and, please, Harry interrupted. I need to know why. Why he made me forget they loved me. Why he left me with people who hated me when I had godparents who wanted me. Miranda hesitated, clearly torn. Let me discuss it with Madame Bones. If she approves, and if Professor McGonagall and Professor Snape can be present as well, then perhaps a short, supervised meeting might be arranged. Harry nodded, accepting this compromise. Thank you. After Miranda and Master Healer Thornfield left to consult with Madame Bones, Harry lay back against his pillows, physically and emotionally drained but with a strange new clarity. For the first time in his life, he knew who he really was, not just the unwanted nephew of the Dursleys, but Harry James Potter, the son of Lily and James Potter, who had been loved fiercely and completely. Whatever came next, no one could take that knowledge from him again. The meeting was arranged for the following morning, before the Wisengamot session. Harry woke early, nervous but resolute. Miranda helped him dress in proper wizarding robes that someone had brought for him, child-sized robes in a deep green that, she told him, matched his eyes just as they had matched his mother's. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she asked as she helped him comb his unruly hair. Harry nodded, his expression solemn. "I need to know why." Miranda sighed but didn't try to dissuade him further. "Remember, Professor McGonagall and Professor Snape will be there, as well as Madame Bones and myself. If at any point you feel uncomfortable or want to stop, just say the word." Harry nodded again, appreciating her concern but already focused on the upcoming confrontation. Part of him, the part that had spent years cowering in a cupboard at the Dursleys, was terrified at the thought of confronting such a powerful wizard. But another part, the part that had just remembered his mother standing between him and Voldemort without a hint of fear, felt suddenly, fiercely brave. They made their way to a conference room on the administrative floor of St. Mungo's. Inside, Professor McGonagall and Professor Snape were already waiting, along with Madame Bones. All three adults rose as Harry entered with Miranda. "Good morning, Mr. Potter," Madame Bones greeted him formally. "How are you feeling today?" "I'm okay," Harry replied. Ready to talk to him. As if summoned by his words, the door opened again, and Albus Dumbledore entered. Even knowing who to expect, Harry was still struck by the headmaster's appearance, the long silver beard, the half-moon spectacles, the brightly colored robes, today in a deep purple with silver stars. He looked exactly like a wizard from a storybook. "Harry, my boy," Dumbledore said warmly, as if they were old friends. "I'm pleased to see you looking so well." Harry didn't return the smile. "I remember now," he said bluntly. "I remember them. My parents. How they died. How much they loved me." Something flickered in Dumbledore's blue eyes, surprise, perhaps, or calculation. "I see the memory charm removal is progressing rapidly. Why did you do it?" Harry asked, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. "Why did you make me forget they loved me?" The room fell completely silent. McGonagall and Snape were watching Dumbledore intently, while Madame Bones observed with the sharp focus of a seasoned investigator. Dumbledore sighed, suddenly looking very old. "It's a complicated matter, Harry. One that involves difficult choices and terrible burdens." "Try explaining it anyway," Harry said, a hint of his father's defiance in his tone. "I'm smarter than I look." A ghost of a smile crossed Dumbledore's face. "Indeed you are. Very well." He took a seat across from Harry, his blue eyes no longer twinkling but grave. "Do you remember the prophecy your parents mentioned in one of your memories?" Harry nodded. "Something about me and Voldemort." Dumbledore winced slightly at the name but continued. "Yes. Shortly before you were born, a prophecy was made suggesting that a child born at the end of July would have the power to vanquish Lord Voldemort. The prophecy could have referred to one of two boys, you or Neville Longbottom. Voldemort chose to believe it meant you. That's why he came after us," Harry said. "Why he killed my parents." "Yes. But there is more to the prophecy, Harry. Details that suggest you and Voldemort are connected in ways we do not yet fully understand. And I still believe, that Voldemort is not truly gone." Harry frowned. "What does that have to do with making me forget my parents loved me?" Dumbledore hesitated, clearly choosing his words carefully. "When you survived the killing curse, it created a unique situation. Your survival was due to your mother's sacrifice. Her love created a powerful protection that lives in your blood. But it also created a connection between you and Voldemort. And that's why you put me with Aunt Petunia. Because of blood protection?" "Precisely," Dumbledore nodded. As long as you could call home the place where your mother's blood dwells, your aunt's house, Voldemort could not touch you there. That doesn't explain the memory charms, Harry persisted, refusing to be sidetracked. Dumbledore sighed deeply. No, it doesn't. The memory charms were a separate decision. One I made based on what I believed would be necessary when you eventually must face Voldemort again. Face him again? Harry repeated, eyes widening. You think he's coming back? I know he will try, Dumbledore said gravely. And when he does, the prophecy suggests you will have to confront him. The memory charms were meant to prepare you for that confrontation. By making me forget I was loved. Harry's voice rose slightly. How does that prepare me for anything except being miserable? Attachments can be vulnerabilities, Harry, Dumbledore said softly. Love is the greatest power in the world, but it is also the source of our greatest pain. I believed, perhaps mistakenly, that by shielding you from the full knowledge of what you had lost, I was protecting you from a pain that might become crippling. That wasn't your decision to make, Harry said, anger building inside him. They were my memories. My parents. My love. Yes, Dumbledore acknowledged, surprising everyone in the room. You are right, Harry. It was not my decision to make. I acted out of a desire to protect you and prepare you for what I fear lies ahead. But in doing so, I overstepped my authority and violated your trust. Harry stared at the old wizard, caught off guard by the admission. So you admit you were wrong? I admit I made a grave error in judgment, Dumbledore replied carefully. Though my intentions were good, my methods were flawed. Flawed? McGonagall interrupted, her Scottish brogue thick with emotion. Albus, you systematically erased a child's memories of being loved. You left him with abusive relatives who told him his parents were worthless drunks who died in a car crash. That goes well beyond flawed. And yet the blood protection held, Dumbledore pointed out. Harry survived, safe from Voldemort and his followers. At what cost? Snape asked quietly, speaking for the first time. You protected his life while destroying his spirit. Dumbledore turned to Snape, a flash of genuine surprise on his face. I had not expected you of all people to be sentimental about the boy's happiness, Severus. This isn't about sentiment, Snape replied coldly. This is about Lily's son being deliberately robbed of his memories of her love. You know what she would say about that. Dumbledore had the grace to look discomfited. Perhaps I underestimated the importance of those memories to Harry's well-being. Perhaps. Madame Bones interjected dryly. Headmaster, you placed 47 separate memory charms on a child, specifically targeting his memories of parental affection. This goes beyond error into the realm of criminal behavior. I am prepared to face the consequences of my actions, Dumbledore said with dignity. But I must emphasize that everything I did was with Harry's ultimate survival in mind. I don't need you to help me survive, Harry said suddenly, his young voice surprisingly steady. My parents already did that. My mum died to save me. My dad died trying to protect us both. Their love saved me from Voldemort. Not you. The simplicity of this statement seemed to strike Dumbledore like a physical blow. For perhaps the first time in decades, the greatest wizard of the age appeared genuinely taken aback. You are more right than you know, Harry, he finally said. Your mother's love did indeed save you. It was her sacrifice that created the protection that rebounded the killing curse back upon Voldemort. Then why would you ever think I needed to forget that? Harry demanded. If love is what saved me, why would you take away my memories of being loved? Dumbledore had no immediate answer. The silence stretched, growing increasingly uncomfortable until Madame Bones finally broke it. I believe this meeting has clarified several key points, she said briskly. Headmaster Dumbledore has admitted to placing the memory charms and acknowledged that doing so was inappropriate, regardless of his intentions. This will be taken into account during today's Wisengamot session. Dumbledore rose from his seat, smoothing his purple robes. Indeed. And now I must prepare for that session. He turned to Harry, his expression grave. I am truly sorry for the pain I have caused you, Harry. Whether you can believe it or not, I have always acted out of concern for your well-being and the greater good. The greater good, Harry repeated slowly. What about my good? Didn't that matter at all? It mattered, Dumbledore assured him. But in times of war, difficult choices must sometimes be made. The war ended 5 years ago, Harry pointed out. But you kept putting memory charms on me. The healers said the newest one was from last year. Again, Dumbledore seemed to have no ready answer. As I said, I still fear, that the war is not truly over. That will be for the Wizengamot to consider, Madam Bones said firmly. For now, I believe Mr. Potter has had enough questioning for one day. Dumbledore nodded, moving toward the door. Of course. Good day, Harry. I hope that in time, you might come to understand, if not forgive, my actions. As the door closed behind him, Harry let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He felt drained but also strangely empowered. He had faced the wizard who had manipulated his life and memories, and he had held his ground. You did very well, Mr. Potter, Professor McGonagall said, her eyes suspiciously bright. Your parents would be proud. Indeed, Professor Snape agreed quietly. You showed courage. Coming from the Dour Potions master, this seemed to be high praise indeed. Harry managed a small smile. Thank you. Both of you. For being here. We will continue to be here, Mr. Potter, McGonagall assured him. Whatever the Wizengamot decides today. As the adults prepared to leave for the Wizengamot session, Harry caught Miranda's sleeve. Do you think he's right? That Voldemort will come back and I'll have to face him. Miranda hesitated, clearly uncertain how to respond to such a question from a 6-year-old. I don't know, Harry. But I do know this, if that day ever comes, you won't face it alone. Not anymore. It was a simple promise, but to a boy who had spent 5 years believing he was unwanted and unloved, it meant everything. The emergency session of the Wizengamot was unprecedented in recent history. Every seat in the ancient chamber was filled, and the gallery above was packed with spectators and press. Rita Skeeter sat in the front row of the press section, her acid-green quick-quotes quill poised eagerly over her parchment. At the center of the chamber stood Albus Dumbledore, not in his usual position as chief warlock presiding over the proceedings, but in the position of the questioned, facing the full Wizengamot with Amelia Bones leading the inquiry. This emergency session has been called to address serious allegations regarding the magical guardianship of Harry James Potter, Bones began, her voice magically amplified to reach every corner of the chamber. Specifically, the discovery of 47 memory charms placed upon the minor in question by his magical guardian, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore. A murmur ran through the assembled witches and wizards. Dumbledore stood calmly in the center of the chamber, his hands folded in front of him. Before we proceed with questioning, Bones continued, I must inform the Wizengamot that we have successfully petitioned for the unsealing of James and Lily Potter's will, which was sealed by order of the previous chief warlock immediately following their deaths. This caused an even louder stir. Dumbledore's expression remained impassive, but those watching closely might have noticed a slight tension in his shoulders. The will contains several provisions directly relevant to these proceedings, Bones explained. Most notably, explicit instructions regarding the guardianship of their son, Harry James Potter, in the event of their deaths. She unfurled a scroll and began to read, We, James Fleamont Potter and Lily Evans Potter, being of sound mind and magic, do hereby declare this to be our last will and testament. In the event of our deaths, guardianship of our son, Harry James Potter, is to be granted in the following order of preference, first, to Sirius Orion Black, Harry's godfather by ritual and magic. Second, if Sirius is unable to fulfill this duty, to Alice and Frank Longbottom, dear friends and Harry's godmother. Third, if neither of the above options is possible, to Remus John Lupin, with financial support from the Potter vaults to ensure proper care. Fourth, to Minerva McGonagall, our trusted mentor and friend. Under no circumstances is Harry to be placed with Petunia and Vernon Dursley. Petunia's resentment of magic in our family specifically makes her home unsuitable for our son's upbringing. Bones paused, allowing the implications of this to sink in. The chamber had gone completely still. As you can see, she continued after a moment, Albus Dumbledore directly contravened the explicitly stated wishes of James and Lily Potter by placing their son with the very people they specifically prohibited. If I may, Dumbledore interjected calmly. The circumstances following the Potters' deaths were extraordinary. Sirius Black was imprisoned for betraying the Potters and murdering 13 people. The Longbottoms were attacked and rendered permanently incapacitated. Remus Lupin's lycanthropy made him legally ineligible for guardianship under ministry regulations at that time. And Minerva McGonagall, as a full-time educator at a boarding school, was not in a position to provide day-to-day care for an infant. These points are acknowledged, Bones replied. However, the will also contains a list of no fewer than 12 other families who the Potters considered suitable guardians, none of whom were approached. Furthermore, the will explicitly states that Harry was not to be placed with the Dursleys under any circumstances. The blood protection, Dumbledore began, was a theoretical magical protection that you prioritized over the expressed wishes of the child's parents and his actual physical and emotional well-being, Bones finished for him. Medical scans at St. Mungo's have revealed evidence of long-term neglect and occasional physical abuse. Gasps and angry mutters filled the chamber. Rita Skeeter's quill was practically smoking as it raced across her parchment. Moreover, Bones continued relentlessly, the will contains a specific provision regarding Sirius Black's role in the Potter's protection arrangements. She returned to the scroll, we wish it to be known that we changed our secret keeper from Sirius Black to Peter Pettigrew on October 24, 1981, at the suggestion of Sirius himself. If we have died as a result of betrayal, Peter Pettigrew should be investigated. The chamber exploded into chaos. Bones had to shoot several loud bangs from her wand before order was restored. In light of this revelation, she continued once the noise had subsided, I have already ordered a stay of Sirius Black's imprisonment pending a full investigation and trial, something he was never granted in the first place. All eyes turned to Dumbledore, who for once appeared to be at a loss for words. Headmaster Dumbledore, Bones said formally, as Chief Warlock at the time of Sirius Black's arrest, can you explain why this key witness to the Potter's murder never received a trial, especially when you had access to a will that cast significant doubt on his guilt? The evidence against Sirius seemed overwhelming at the time, Dumbledore replied carefully. The street full of witnesses who saw him confront Pettigrew, the 13 dead Muggles, Pettigrew's finger left behind. Yet you never questioned why a wizard of Black's caliber would confront his supposed victim in a street full of Muggles. Or why a supposedly dark wizard would use an exploding curse rather than the killing curse. Or how Pettigrew, by all accounts a mediocre wizard, could have escaped from Black, an accomplished duelist. Dumbledore had no immediate answer. Furthermore, Bones pressed on, as the Potters' self-appointed magical guardian after their deaths, why did you not ensure their will was executed according to their wishes? Why seal it at all? I believed I was acting in Harry's best interests, Dumbledore replied, his voice still steady though his customary twinkle was notably absent. The blood protection offered by his mother's sacrifice could only be maintained if he lived with a blood relative. Petunia Dursley, as Lily Potter's sister, was the only option for that protection. Even at the cost of the boy's happiness and well-being. Even in direct contravention of his parents' explicit wishes. The protection of Harry's life had to take precedence, Dumbledore insisted. Bones changed tack. Let us address the memory charms directly. Do you deny placing these charms on Harry Potter? I do not, Dumbledore replied, drawing himself up. Though I maintain they were placed with the best of intentions. 47 separate memory charms, specifically targeting the boy's memories of parental affection, were placed with the best of intentions. Bones asked skeptically. Perhaps you would care to explain those intentions to the Wisengamot. Dumbledore surveyed the chamber, seeming to weigh his words carefully. Harry Potter is not an ordinary child. The night Voldemort, a collective flinch ran through the chamber at the name, attacked the Potters, a connection was formed between them. I believe that connection, combined with a prophecy made before Harry's birth, means the boy will one day have to face Voldemort again. The chamber had gone deathly silent, everyone hanging on Dumbledore's words. The memory charms were intended to prepare him for that eventual confrontation. To shield him from emotional attachments that might make necessary sacrifices more difficult. You deliberately suppressed his memories of being loved, Bones clarified, her voice hard, to make him more willing to sacrifice himself in some future confrontation with he who must not be named. Put so bluntly, the strategy sounded horrifying. Even some of Dumbledore's most steadfast supporters in the Wisengamot looked disturbed. The prophecy suggests Harry may be the only one who can defeat Voldemort permanently, Dumbledore said quietly. The fate of our world may rest on his shoulders. I sought to prepare him for that burden. By ensuring he grew up unloved and ignorant of his heritage. Bones pressed. How exactly would that prepare him for anything except misery? A boy with no strong attachments would be more focused on the greater good, Dumbledore replied. More willing to do what is necessary, without hesitation. The chamber was utterly silent now, the implications of Dumbledore's words sinking in. He had deliberately engineered a child's upbringing to create a weapon, someone who would sacrifice himself when the time came because he had nothing to live for. Headmaster Dumbledore, Bones said finally, you have admitted to placing unauthorized memory charms on a minor under your guardianship, contravening the explicit wishes in a legal will, placing a child in a home his parents specifically prohibited, and effectively imprisoning an innocent man by failing to ensure he received a fair trial. Do you have anything further to add before the Wisengamot deliberates? Dumbledore looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of wizards and witches who had respected and followed him for decades. Many now looked back with shock, disappointment, or outright anger. I have only ever acted with the best interests of our world at heart, he said quietly. If I have erred, it was in believing that the end justified the means. Perhaps in that, I was mistaken. It was the closest thing to an admission of guilt anyone had ever heard from Albus Dumbledore. As he stepped back, the chamber erupted into urgent whispers. After a brief recess for deliberation, the Wisengamot returned with their decisions. First, Dumbledore's magical guardianship of Harry Potter was permanently revoked. Second, temporary guardianship was granted to Minerva McGonagall, in accordance with the Potter's will, until Sirius Black's status could be resolved. Third, a full criminal investigation into Dumbledore's actions was ordered, with the possibility of charges to follow. Fourth, Dumbledore was suspended from his position as Chief Warlock of the Wisengamot pending the outcome of the investigation. Fifth, a complete review of Sirius Black's case was to begin immediately, with a proper trial scheduled within the month. As the session concluded, Dumbledore accepted the rulings with outward grace, though the usual twinkle in his blue eyes had dimmed considerably. As he left the chamber, reporters shouted questions, but for once, the great Albus Dumbledore had nothing to say. Back at St. Mungo's, Harry waited anxiously for news. Miranda had stayed with him while the others attended the Wisengamot session, distracting him with stories about the magical world and his parents' time at Hogwarts. Did you know my parents? Harry asked during a lull in the conversation. Miranda shook her head. Not personally. They were a few years ahead of me at Hogwarts. But everyone knew who James Potter was. He was a bit of a legendary prankster and Quidditch star. And your mother was one of the brightest witches in the school. What house were you in? Harry asked, recalling what McGonagall had told him about the Hogwarts houses. Ravenclaw, Miranda replied with a smile. We're known for intelligence and creativity. And my parents were in Gryffindor. For bravery. That's right. Though the Sorting Hat takes your choices into account too, or so they say. Harry was about to ask another question when the door opened, admitting Professor McGonagall, looking tired but satisfied. Professor! Harry exclaimed. What happened? What did the Wisengamot say? McGonagall took the chair beside his bed. They made several important decisions, Mr. Potter. First and most importantly, Dumbledore is no longer your magical guardian. Who is, then? Harry asked anxiously. Not the Dursleys. Certainly not, McGonagall assured him firmly. Your parents' will was very clear that you were never to be placed with them. My parents' will? Harry repeated, eyes widening. You found it? Madame Bones had it unsealed, McGonagall explained. It contained very specific instructions about who should care for you if anything happened to your parents. The Dursleys were explicitly excluded. Then who? Harry began, hope building in his chest. Your parents' first choice was your godfather, Sirius Black, McGonagall said carefully. But he has been unavailable. Their second choice was the Longbottoms, who are unfortunately also unable to take care of you. Their third choice was Remus Lupin, but there are certain legal complications there. So that leaves. Harry prompted. McGonagall's stern face softened into a smile. Me, as it happens. Your parents named me as their fourth choice. And the Wisengamot has granted me temporary guardianship until certain matters regarding Sirius Black can be resolved. You. Harry breathed, hardly daring to believe it. I get to live with you. If that is acceptable to you, yes, McGonagall confirmed. Though I should warn you that during the school year, I live at Hogwarts. We would need to make arrangements for your care during term time until you're old enough to attend yourself. But I'd never have to go back to the Dursleys. Harry asked, needing absolute confirmation on this point. Never, McGonagall said firmly. Your parents explicitly prohibited it, and given what we now know about your treatment there, the Ministry would never allow it regardless. Harry felt as if a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Thank you, he whispered, his eyes suddenly damp. Thank you so much. McGonagall looked slightly flustered at his emotional response. No thanks are necessary, Mr. Potter. I should have checked on you years ago, regardless of Dumbledore's assurances. I failed you and your parents, and for that, I apologize. You didn't know, Harry said generously. Dumbledore lied to everyone. Nevertheless, McGonagall said, straightening her shoulders. I intend to do better from now on. What about Sirius Black? Harry asked after a moment. Madame Bones said he was in prison for betraying my parents, but in my memories, I saw them change secret keepers to Peter Pettigrew. The will confirmed exactly that, McGonagall said, looking troubled. It appears Sirius Black may have been wrongfully imprisoned all these years. Madame Bones has ordered a review of his case and a proper trial, something he never received at the time. So he might be free soon. My godfather? It's quite possible, McGonagall acknowledged. Though after 5 years in Azkaban, well, it's a terrible place, Harry. It affects people deeply. Even if Sirius is released, he may need considerable time to recover before he's able to take on guardianship responsibilities. Harry nodded, trying to process everything. And what about Dumbledore? What's going to happen to him? He has been suspended from his position as Chief Warlock of the Wisengamot, and there will be a criminal investigation into his actions regarding both you and Sirius Black. Whether he will face charges remains to be seen. McGonagall's expression was troubled. He remains headmaster of Hogwarts for now, though the Board of Governors will be meeting to discuss that as well. Harry absorbed this information, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Part of him wanted Dumbledore to be punished for what he had done, for stealing his memories, for leaving him with the Dursleys, for imprisoning his godfather. But another part remembered the old wizard's explanation about protection and prophecies. Do you think he was right? Harry asked quietly. About Voldemort coming back? About me having to face him someday? McGonagall's lips thinned at the use of Voldemort's name, but she answered honestly. I don't know, Harry. Albus Dumbledore is many things, but he is rarely wrong about matters of such importance. However, even if he is right about that, he was wrong about how to prepare you for it. What do you mean? Dumbledore believed that by isolating you, by removing your memories of love and attachment, he was making you stronger, more willing to make necessary sacrifices. But your mother proved the exact opposite. It was her love for you, her willingness to sacrifice herself to save you, that created the protection that defeated you-know-who. So love makes you stronger, not weaker, Harry concluded. Precisely, McGonagall agreed, a rare smile crossing her face. And that, Mr. Potter, is the most important lesson your parents could have taught you, and the very one Dumbledore tried to take from you. Harry felt a surge of determination. Then I want to remember everything. All the memories. So I'll be as strong as my mum and dad were. A worthy goal, McGonagall said approvingly. And one I believe Healer Evergreen will help you achieve. As if summoned by her name, Miranda entered the room, accompanied by Master Healer Thornfield. Ah, Professor McGonagall. I see you've shared the news with Harry. McGonagall nodded. I have. And he's eager to continue with the memory charm removal. Excellent, Master Healer Thornfield said. We're prepared to remove another batch this afternoon, if Harry feels up to it. I do, Harry said firmly. I want to remember everything. Miranda smiled at his determination. We'll proceed carefully, removing a few charms at a time to avoid overwhelming you. At this rate, we should be able to remove all of them within the next 2 weeks. And after that? Harry asked. What happens then? Then, McGonagall said, we begin building a new life for you, Mr. Potter. One where you are surrounded by people who care for you, as your parents would have wanted. For the first time in his memory, Harry felt a surge of genuine hope for the future. Not just the absence of fear or pain that had been his best moments at the Dursleys, but actual, positive hope. He had a new guardian who seemed to actually want him. His godfather might be freed soon. He was recovering memories of love and belonging. And most importantly, he knew now that he had been loved, truly, deeply loved. That knowledge filled the empty spaces inside him that had ached for as long as he could remember. Whatever came next, even if Voldemort did return someday, he would face it knowing he was not alone. He never had been. As the sun set over London, the evening edition of the Daily Prophet was hitting wizarding homes across Britain. The headline was even more explosive than the previous days: Potter will unsealed, Sirius Black innocent. Dumbledore suspended as Chief Warlock by Rita Skeeter, special correspondent in a stunning turn of events that has sent shockwaves through wizarding Britain. The last will and testament of James and Lily Potter was unsealed today during an emergency session of the Wizengamot, revealing bombshell evidence that Sirius Black, imprisoned for betraying the Potters to you-know-who, may be completely innocent. The will, sealed by then-Chief Warlock Albus Dumbledore immediately following the Potters' deaths, contained explicit confirmation that Peter Pettigrew, not Black, was the Potters' secret keeper at the time of their murder. If we have died as a result of betrayal, the will states, Peter Pettigrew should be investigated. Even more shocking, the will explicitly prohibited placing young Harry Potter with his Muggle relatives, the Dursleys, exactly where Dumbledore left the boy who lived for 5 years of documented neglect and abuse. Dumbledore has manipulated events to an extent that is truly breathtaking, said a source close to the investigation. He effectively imprisoned an innocent man without trial and placed a child exactly where his parents had forbidden, all while maintaining a public image as a champion of justice. The Wizengamot has suspended Dumbledore from his position as Chief Warlock pending a criminal investigation into his actions. Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress of Hogwarts, has been granted temporary guardianship of Harry Potter in accordance with the Potters' wishes. Meanwhile, the Ministry has ordered an immediate review of Sirius Black's case, with a proper trial, his first, scheduled within the month. If Black is indeed innocent, as the evidence strongly suggests, noted wizarding law expert Archibald Lawton, we're looking at one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in magical history. The question remains, why would Albus Dumbledore, long revered as the greatest wizard of our time, orchestrate such elaborate manipulations around the boy who lived? During today's Wisengamot session, Dumbledore made the shocking admission that he deliberately suppressed Harry Potter's memories of parental love to make the boy more willing to make necessary sacrifices in some future confrontation with you-know-who. He was grooming a weapon, not raising a child, one horrified Wisengamot member commented. As Wizarding Britain reels from these revelations, one thing is clear: nothing about the story of Harry Potter is as we've been led to believe. And the man responsible for the deception is none other than Albus Dumbledore himself. Continued on pages 2 to 9, complete coverage of the Wisengamot session, excerpts from the Potter will, and exclusive insights into Harry Potter's treatment at the hands of his Muggle relatives. In a small cell in the high-security wing of Azkaban prison, Sirius Black lay curled in his animagus form, the dog's mind less susceptible to the effects of the Dementors. He had no knowledge of the developments happening beyond the prison walls, no idea that his godson had recovered memories of him, no inkling that the truth of his innocence had finally emerged. But for the first time in years, the black dog twitched in his sleep, dreaming not of death and betrayal, but of a small boy with James's face and Lily's eyes, reaching out his arms and calling, "Padfoot." Somewhere deep in his damaged mind, Sirius Black held on to the one thought that had kept him sane for 5 long years: Harry needs me. I am innocent, and someday, somehow, I will be there for my godson. Destiny, it seemed, had finally decided to listen. Chapter 3, The Reclamation. Morning sunlight streamed through the windows of McGonagall's cottage in the Scottish Highlands, catching dust motes dancing in the air. Harry sat at the kitchen table, watching in fascination as his new guardian directed breakfast preparations with precise flicks of her wand. Eggs cracked themselves into a bowl, a whisk spun on its own accord, and toast popped up golden brown from an ancient-looking toaster that didn't seem to be plugged into anything. "Is all cooking this easy with magic?" Harry asked, still not quite believing this was his life now. McGonagall's lips quirked in a small smile. "Easy is relative, Mr. Potter. These are simple spells I've performed thousands of times. More complex cooking requires considerably more concentration. And I'll learn to do this at Hogwarts." Eventually, McGonagall confirmed, directing the now scrambled eggs onto 2 plates with another wand movement. Though students typically start with transforming matchsticks into needles rather than cooking breakfast. Harry nodded, eagerly accepting the plate she floated toward him. After a week in McGonagall's care, he was still getting used to regular meals and being allowed, encouraged, even, to eat his fill. The change from St. Mungo's to McGonagall's cottage had been swift once the paperwork was completed, though they still traveled to the hospital daily for his ongoing memory charm removal treatments. "Healer Evergreen says we're tackling the last big batch of charms today," Harry said between bites of toast. McGonagall's expression turned serious as she joined him at the table. "Yes, and I must warn you, Harry, these may be the most difficult yet. The most recent charms are also the most deeply embedded." "I'm ready," Harry said with determination beyond his 6 years. "I want to know everything Dumbledore tried to hide from me." McGonagall studied him over her teacup. "Your courage continues to impress me, Mr. Potter. Very Gryffindor of you." Harry beamed at what he now understood was high praise from the head of Gryffindor House. "Professor? Can I ask about Sirius Black? Has there been any news?" McGonagall set down her teacup. "As a matter of fact, yes. Madame Bones visited him yesterday at Azkaban. His condition is concerning after 5 years with the Dementors, but he recognized her and was able to answer questions coherently." "When will he get a trial?" Harry asked eagerly. "The Wisengamot has scheduled it for tomorrow morning. With the evidence from your parents' will, plus testimony under Veritaserum, Madame Bones believes his exoneration is all but certain." Harry pushed his half-eaten breakfast aside, suddenly too excited to eat. "And then can I meet him? He's my godfather. In my memories, he loved me, and I loved him. If he is exonerated, which seems likely, then yes, you may meet him," McGonagall confirmed. Though I must caution you, Harry, Azkaban changes people. The Sirius Black you remember may be very different from the man who emerges from that place. Harry's face fell slightly. Because of the Dementor things? Precisely. Dementors feed on happy memories, leaving prisoners with only their worst experiences. Sirius has spent 5 years surrounded by them, believing his best friends were dead, his godson lost to him, and that everyone thought him a traitor. Then we need to help him, Harry said firmly. Like people are helping me. McGonagall's stern face softened. Indeed we shall. Now, finish your breakfast. We need to leave for St. Mungo's in 20 minutes. As Harry returned to his eggs, he felt a flutter of nervous anticipation in his stomach. Today's session would remove the final major barriers to his memories. Whatever Dumbledore had most wanted to keep from him, he would finally know. St. Mungo's was busier than usual when they arrived, with reporters camped in the lobby hoping for updates on the Potter case. Hospital security kept them at bay while McGonagall whisked Harry through a staff entrance and up to the familiar treatment room where Miranda waited. "Good morning, Harry," she greeted him cheerfully, though Harry noticed dark circles under her eyes suggesting she hadn't slept much. "Ready for our big day?" "Ready," Harry confirmed, climbing onto the treatment bed without prompting. After nearly 2 weeks of daily sessions, the routine was familiar. "Excellent. Master Healer Thornfield will be joining us shortly. Today is significant, we'll be removing the last 12 charms, which are also the most recent and complex." "Why did you look worried when I came in?" Harry asked perceptively. Miranda hesitated. "These final charms have unusual magical properties. They're layered differently than the others. Almost as if they're protecting specific information rather than just emotional memories." "Information Dumbledore really didn't want me to have," Harry guessed. "Precisely." Miranda adjusted some instruments on a nearby tray. "Which makes them potentially more dangerous to remove. The mind doesn't like having information forcibly compartmentalized, and these charms have been fighting against your natural mental processes for years." The door opened, admitting Master Healer Thornfield and, surprisingly, Madame Bones. "Ah, Mr. Potter," the DMLE director greeted him. "Thank you for permitting my attendance today. Given what we suspect about these final memory charms, it seemed prudent to have an official witness." Harry nodded, though he felt a twinge of anxiety at this addition. "You think I'm going to remember something important for Sirius's trial?" "It's possible," Madame Bones acknowledged. "Or something relevant to our ongoing investigation into Albus Dumbledore's actions. Either way, I'll remain unobtrusive." Master Healer Thornfield moved to Harry's side, running diagnostic spells with practiced efficiency. "The charms are becoming increasingly unstable," he reported. "Harry's natural magic is fighting against them, especially as the older memories have returned to provide context for what was hidden." "Is that dangerous?" McGonagall asked sharply. "It would be more dangerous to leave them," Miranda explained. "If these charms shatter rather than being carefully dismantled, the rush of returning memories could be overwhelming or even traumatic." "I want them gone," Harry said firmly. "All of them?" The adults exchanged glances, then nodded. "Very well," Master Healer Thornfield said. "Let's begin with the oldest of this final batch." Harry lay back and closed his eyes, now familiar with the procedure. He felt the cool tip of a wand against his temple, heard the musical incantation that had become almost soothing in its familiarity, and then, Dumbledore sat in the Potter's living room in Godric's Hollow, his expression grave as he addressed James and Lily. "The prophecy refers unmistakably to your son," he told them, his voice soft but weighted with significance. "Or potentially to the Longbottom's boy. Both children were born as the 7th month died." "What exactly does this prophecy say?" James demanded, his arm around Lily, who held baby Harry protectively against her chest. Dumbledore's eyes flicked to Harry, then back to the Potters. "The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies, and the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not, and either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives." Lily gasped, her arms tightening around Harry. "That's barbaric. He's a baby." "The prophecy doesn't specify when this confrontation must occur," Dumbledore said gently. "It may be years, decades, even, before it comes to pass." "If it comes to pass at all," James said harshly. "Prophecies are notoriously ambiguous. It might not even refer to Harry." "Voldemort believes it does," Dumbledore countered. "A portion of the prophecy was overheard and related to him. He has already begun hunting for your son and the Longbottom boy." "So we hide," Lily said immediately. "We use the Fidelius charm, like you suggested." "Yes," Dumbledore agreed. "But there's something else you should consider." His eyes fixed on Harry again, a calculating look that made Lily shift uncomfortably. "The prophecy mentions a power the Dark Lord knows not. I believe that power is love." "Love?" James repeated skeptically. "Voldemort cannot comprehend love. He has never experienced it, never understood it. It is alien to him, and therefore, a potential weapon." "Harry will be loved," Lily said fiercely. "That's not even a question." "Of course," Dumbledore said smoothly. "But I wonder if we might amplify that protection. There are ancient magics, blood magics, that could use your love to shield him should the worst happen." "Blood magic is borderline dark," James said with a frown. "Not dark in intent or outcome," Dumbledore corrected. "Merely powerful and misunderstood. Lily, your expertise in charms makes you ideally suited to adapt the ritual I have in mind." Lily looked down at Harry, then up at Dumbledore with determination in her green eyes. "Tell me what I need to do." The memory shifted, fragmenting and reforming into a later scene. "I don't like it, Lily," James said as they prepared for bed. "Dumbledore's been different lately. More secretive. More calculating. He's under enormous pressure," Lily defended, though she sounded uncertain. "The Order is losing ground. People are disappearing weekly. It's more than that." James ran a hand through his perpetually messy hair. "The way he looks at Harry sometimes, like he's assessing a weapon, not a child." "James. I'm serious, Lils. And this ritual he wants you to perform. I've been researching it. The protection would work, but there's a cost. A significant one." Lily sat on the edge of their bed. "What cost?" "The protection requires a willing sacrifice. For it to work, you would need to die defending Harry, having been given the choice to step aside." The color drained from Lily's face. "That's why he explained it only to me, not both of us." "He's preparing contingencies," James said grimly. "Planning for our deaths as if they're inevitable." "Maybe they are," Lily whispered. "This prophecy, hang the prophecy." James exploded. "I won't let our lives be dictated by some cryptic prediction. And I sure as hell won't let Dumbledore manipulate you into a sacrificial ritual." Lily stood and crossed to the window, looking out at the night. "If it came to it," she said softly, "if it was the only way to save Harry, I would do it. Without hesitation." James moved behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and pressing his face into her hair. "I know. So would I. But that doesn't mean we should walk willingly into Dumbledore's grand design. We need to take control of our own fate." Lily turned in his arms. "What are you suggesting?" "We modify the ritual. Take Dumbledore's concept but make it our own. Something that protects Harry without requiring your death as the activating element." A spark of the brilliant which she was flared in Lily's eyes. "A preemptive protection. James, that could work. I need to research blood wards that don't require sacrifice. And I think we need to reconsider our secret keeper," James added. "Dumbledore offered to do it himself." "You don't trust him anymore," Lily said. "It wasn't a question. I trust that he wants Voldemort defeated, James said carefully. I'm just not sure I trust what he's willing to sacrifice to make that happen. The memory dissolved, then reformed into yet another scene. Lily bent over an ancient tome in their living room, making rapid notes while James entertained Harry with puffs of colored smoke from his wand. I think I've found it, she said suddenly. A way to establish the blood protection without requiring death as the catalyst. James looked up, hope dawning on his face. Really? It's complex, but doable. It requires a blood donation freely given, infused with pure intent, bound to Harry through a modified version of the godparent ritual. She looked up, her green eyes bright with excitement. We'll need Sirius. He'll do it, James said without hesitation. When? Halloween, Lily said, consulting her notes. The veil between worlds is thinnest then. It will make the ritual stronger. Halloween it is. James lifted Harry high, grinning up at him. Hear that, Prongslet? Mummy's brilliant plan is going to keep you safe. Harry giggled, reaching for his father's glasses as always. There's just one problem, Lily continued, her expression growing troubled. Dumbledore can't know. He's too invested in his version of the protection. He might try to stop us. James lowered Harry to his lap, suddenly serious. Then we don't tell him. We don't tell anyone except Sirius. And we proceed as if we're following Dumbledore's plan, so he doesn't suspect. James Potter, I never thought I'd see the day you advocated deceiving Albus Dumbledore, Lily said, though her tone was light. Desperate times, love, James replied, bouncing Harry gently. Desperate times. The memory faded, leaving Harry gasping as he returned to awareness in the hospital room. The adults were watching him intently, Madame Bones leaning forward with particular interest. My parents, Harry said shakily. They didn't trust Dumbledore. Not completely. They were planning something for Halloween, a ritual to protect me. The night they died, McGonagall murmured. Did they complete this ritual, Harry? Madame Bones asked urgently. Do you remember? Harry shook his head. Not yet. There's more. I can feel it pushing against the other charms. Miranda exchanged a look with Master Healer Thornfield. The memories are interconnected, she explained. Each one provides context for the next. Shall we continue? At Harry's nod, they proceeded with the next charm removal. This time, the memory that surfaced was darker, more urgent. Peter Pettigrew stood in the Potter's kitchen, his watery eyes darting nervously as he accepted a cup of tea from Lily. You're sure no one followed you? James asked, peering out the window for the third time in as many minutes. Positive, Peter squeaked. I was careful, just like you said. And you've told no one about the switch? Not even Remus? No one, Peter confirmed. Though I still don't understand why you suspect Remus might be the spy. James's face clouded. I don't want to believe it either, but someone is passing information to Voldemort. Dumbledore thinks it might be someone close to us, and Remus has been so secretive lately. It's not Remus, Lily said firmly, entering the conversation as she set Harry in his high chair. I refuse to believe it. Then who? James challenged. Sirius would die before betraying us. That leaves Peter or Remus. Peter shifted uncomfortably. Maybe it's not one of us at all. Maybe it's someone else in the order. Maybe, James conceded, though he didn't sound convinced. Anyway, it doesn't change our plans. The Fidelius charm is cast. You're our secret keeper now, Peter. No one can find us unless you tell them directly where we are. I'll guard the secret with my life, Peter promised, his voice higher than usual. And you'll be at the cottage on Halloween for the ritual? Lily confirmed. We need a third magical signature to stabilize the protection. Of course, Peter agreed quickly. Though I still don't understand why you're not using Dumbledore's version of the spell. He is the greatest wizard of our age. We have our reasons, James said shortly. Just be here at sunset on the 31st. And remember, not a word to anyone. As Peter left, Harry caught a glimpse of something in the small man's expression, a fleeting look of calculation that his parents missed entirely. The memory shifted to what was clearly Halloween night. Lily was drawing complex runes on the floor of the nursery in a substance that gleamed silver in the candlelight. James stood at the window, checking his watch repeatedly. He's late, James muttered. Peter should have been here an hour ago. Maybe he got held up, Lily suggested, though she sounded worried. The ritual window doesn't close until midnight. We still have time. I don't like it. He knows how important this is. James paced the small room. I'm going to contact Sirius, see if he's heard from him. Before he could reach the door, a silver phoenix Patronus glided through the wall. Dumbledore's voice emerged from it. James, Lily, you've been betrayed. He's coming. Get out now. The Patronus dissolved, leaving stunned silence in its wake. Betrayed? Lily whispered. But that would mean, Peter, James said, his face hardening with realization. It was Peter all along. A distant crash shattered the moment. James ran to the window and cursed. The outer wards are falling. He's here. He turned to Lily, his face pale but resolute. Take Harry and run. I'll hold him off. The ritual isn't complete, Lily protested. Harry won't be protected. There's no time. James gripped her shoulders. Get Harry to safety. That's all that matters now. He kissed her fiercely, then pressed his lips to Harry's forehead. I love you both. More than anything. Another crash, closer this time. James pushed them toward the back stairs. Go. But Lily didn't run. Instead, she thrust Harry into his crib and began frantically tracing runes on his forehead with her wand. What are you doing? James demanded from the doorway, his own wand drawn. Improvising, Lily replied, her voice steadier than it had any right to be. The full ritual needed 3 participants, but I can apply a partial version directly. It won't be as strong or as lasting, but, will it protect him? James interrupted. If I do it right, yes. Lily continued her wand work, muttering incantations under her breath. How long? 2 minutes. James nodded once. I'll buy you that time. I love you, Lily Evans Potter. I love you, James Potter. Now go be the hero I married. With one last look at his wife and son, James disappeared from the doorway. Seconds later, they heard him shouting from downstairs, Lily, take Harry, and go. It's him. I'll hold him off. Lily worked with desperate speed, completing the rune sequence on Harry's forehead just as green light flashed from downstairs. She choked back a sob but didn't stop, pressing her wand to the center of Harry's forehead where the runes converged. Blood of my blood, heart of my heart, she whispered. By love freely given, by sacrifice willingly made, if it must come to that, I invoke the ancient protection. Let my life force shield my son from harm. Let my love become his armor against darkness. The runes on Harry's forehead glowed golden for a moment, then sank beneath his skin, leaving no visible trace. Lily pressed a kiss to the spot where they had been. I love you, Harry, she whispered. Whatever happens next, remember that. Mummy loves you. Daddy loves you. You are so very, very loved. The nursery door blasted open, and Lord Voldemort stood framed in the doorway, his red eyes taking in the scene, the abandoned ritual materials on the floor, the witch standing protectively before the crib, the child watching with wide green eyes. Step aside, girl, Voldemort commanded, raising his wand. You need not die tonight. Not Harry, please no, take me, kill me instead, this is my last warning, not Harry. Please, have mercy, have mercy. Not Harry. Not Harry. Please, I'll do anything, Avada Kedavra. Green light flooded the room. Lily crumpled to the floor. Voldemort stepped over her body, raising his wand toward Harry. And so ends the threat, he murmured. Goodbye, Harry Potter. Avada Kedavra. The green light shot toward Harry, but when it struck his forehead, exactly where Lily had placed her protection, something extraordinary happened. The killing curse rebounded, striking Voldemort with full force. His body disintegrated in a maelstrom of dark magic, his spirit tearing free with a terrible scream. In the aftermath, Harry remained in his crib, crying but alive, a lightning-shaped cut on his forehead where his mother's protective runes had been, and where Voldemort's killing curse had struck and rebounded. A figure appeared in the doorway, not Voldemort now, but Dumbledore, his face ashen as he surveyed the scene. He moved first to Lily, checking for any sign of life before gently closing her eyes. Then he approached the crib, his expression shifting from grief to calculated interest as he examined the crying child. So it happened as the prophecy foretold, he murmured. He has marked you as his equal. His fingers traced the bleeding cut on Harry's forehead. But what is this magic? Not the protection I suggested to your mother. Dumbledore cast several diagnostic spells, his eyebrows rising higher with each result. Ingenious, Lily, he whispered. You modified the ritual. Created a protection I didn't anticipate. One triggered by your sacrifice, yes, but designed by your brilliance. He lifted Harry from the crib, studying him intently. This changes things. The connection between you and Voldemort. I can sense it already forming. Part of him lives in you now, Harry Potter. A fragment of his soul, torn loose by the rebounding curse. Dumbledore's expression grew grave. This was not in my calculations. You are a Horcrux, Harry Potter. The prophecy said, neither can live while the other survives, but I did not anticipate this literal connection. He sat heavily in the rocking chair beside the crib, still holding the crying child. This complicates everything. For Voldemort to truly die, this fragment within you must be destroyed. His blue eyes studied Harry with clinical detachment. Which means, when the time comes, you must die too. The sound of a motorcycle outside broke Dumbledore's reverie. He stood, decision made. But that is for the future. For now, we must secure your safety, and begin preparing you for your eventual fate. He drew his wand and pointed it at the still crying child. I am sorry for what I must do, Harry Potter. But it is necessary. The greater good demands it. A spell shot from his wand, striking Harry's temple. You will not remember your parents' love. It would only make your necessary sacrifice more difficult when the time comes. The motorcycle sound grew louder. Dumbledore cast a second spell, then a third, the first of many memory charms that would follow over the years. By the time heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs and Hagrid appeared in the doorway, Harry had stopped crying, his eyes vacant, the memories of his parents' love locked away behind magical barriers. Hagrid, Dumbledore said gravely. Right on time. Harry came back to consciousness in the hospital room with a gasp, tears streaming down his face. The adults were watching him with varying expressions of shock and horror. He knew, Harry choked out. Dumbledore knew all along. He found me right after they died. He knew my mother had protected me. And he saw something inside me, something from Voldemort, and decided I had to die. McGonagall had gone deathly pale. Albus wouldn't, he couldn't possibly. A Horcrux, Madame Bones said sharply. He called you a Horcrux. Did you understand what that meant, Harry? Harry shook his head, wiping at his tears. Just that it was part of Voldemort. That it got inside me when the curse rebounded. And that Dumbledore thinks it has to be destroyed for Voldemort to really die. And he believed you would have to die with it, Miranda said softly, her professional demeanor cracking to reveal naked horror. That's why he did it, Harry realized, the pieces falling into place. That's why he took away my memories of being loved. That's why he put me with the Dursleys. He was raising me to die. The silence that followed this statement was profound. Even Master Healer Thornfield, normally unflappable, looked shaken. "We need to continue," Harry said suddenly, his young voice firm despite the tears still on his face. "There's more. I can feel it." "Harry, perhaps we should take a break," Miranda suggested gently. That was an extremely traumatic memory to process. "No," Harry insisted. "I need to know everything. Now." The healers exchanged glances, clearly concerned, but something in Harry's expression, a determination beyond his years, convinced them to proceed. The next memory charm removal revealed a series of shorter scenes, spanning the years after his parents' deaths. Dumbledore stood over Harry's crib at the Dursleys' house, casting diagnostic spells. "The protection holds," he murmured. "Lily's sacrifice continues to shield you. But these new memories of your aunt's kindness are interfering with my work. We can't have that." Another memory charm, carefully targeted. A year later, Dumbledore observed invisibly as 3-year-old Harry was shoved into his cupboard by Vernon Dursley. "Good," he murmured. "The lack of attachment will serve our purposes. But these memories of your mother's lullabies are surfacing again. We must be more thorough." Another memory charm. 4-year-old Harry, accidentally performing magic to reach a toy Dudley had placed on a high shelf. Dumbledore appearing moments later, erasing not just the memory of the magic, but of wanting the toy in the first place, erasing desire, erasing agency. 5-year-old Harry, being examined during one of Dumbledore's secret visits while the Dursleys were out. "The fragment remains stable," Dumbledore noted clinically. "But your magic grows stronger, pushing against my memory modifications. This won't do." A more complex charm this time, designed to partially suppress Harry's magical core itself. And finally, just months before the present, Dumbledore standing over Harry's sleeping form in the cupboard. "Everything proceeds according to plan," he whispered. "In a few years you'll come to Hogwarts, seeing me as your savior from all this. You'll be grateful, malleable, and when the time comes, ready to make the ultimate sacrifice." As Harry returned to consciousness this time, the room was utterly silent. McGonagall had tears streaming down her face. Madame Bones looked as if she might be ill. Miranda's hands were shaking as she checked Harry's vital signs. "He suppressed my magic," Harry said numbly. "Not just my memories. He made me weaker on purpose." "That's why your accidental magic episode was so extreme," Miranda realized. When the suppression finally broke, all that contained power exploded outward at once. "These memories." Madame Bones began, her voice tight with controlled fury. "These memories are sufficient evidence for multiple criminal charges against Albus Dumbledore. Unauthorized memory charms, magical suppression of a minor, child endangerment, the list goes on." "Will you arrest him?" Harry asked. "Immediately," Madame Bones confirmed. "With your permission, Mr. Potter, I'd like to extract copies of these memories as evidence." Harry nodded without hesitation. "Take them. I want everyone to know what he did." As Madame Bones prepared to collect the memory copies, Master Healer Thornfield cleared his throat. "We still have several memory charms to remove," he reminded them. "If we stop now, the remaining charms could destabilize." "Then let's finish," Harry said firmly. "All of them. Now." The final memory charms revealed more of the same pattern: Dumbledore's periodic visits to check on Harry, additional memory charms whenever Harry showed signs of remembering his parents or developing too much confidence, and most disturbingly, regular monitoring of the Horcrux fragment that Dumbledore believed resided in Harry's scar. When the last charm was finally removed, Harry lay exhausted on the treatment bed, emotionally drained but with a strange sense of completeness. For the first time in his conscious memory, his mind was entirely his own, no barriers, no locked doors, no missing pieces. How do you feel, Harry? Miranda asked gently, helping him sit up. Angry, he said honestly. But also, free. McGonagall moved to his side, uncharacteristically reaching out to smooth his hair. You have every right to your anger, Mr. Potter. What was done to you was unconscionable. What happens now? Harry asked, looking between the adults. Now, Madam Bones said, pocketing the vials containing copies of Harry's memories, I go to arrest Albus Dumbledore. These memories, combined with the evidence we already have, constitute an overwhelming case against him. And I, McGonagall added, take you home to rest. You've been through more today than most adults could handle. Harry nodded, the weight of the day's revelations finally catching up with him. As Miranda helped him off the treatment bed, he swayed slightly, exhaustion evident in every line of his small body. One final diagnostic scan, Master Healer Thornfield insisted. Then you may go. The scan revealed what they had hoped. Harry's mind was now free of all magical interference, the memory charms completely removed. But it also showed something unexpected. His magical core, Miranda said, studying the glowing diagnostic results. It's expanding. The suppression is gone, Master Healer Thornfield confirmed. His natural magic is reasserting itself, quite powerfully, I might add. Is that dangerous? McGonagall asked sharply. Not dangerous, Miranda assured her. But he may experience some magical instability for a few days as his core recalibrates. Nothing to worry about, just keep breakables to a minimum. As they prepared to leave, Harry suddenly remembered something. Wait, what about the Horcrux thing? The part of Voldemort Dumbledore said was in my scar. The adults exchanged uncomfortable glances. That requires further investigation, Madam Bones said carefully. Horcruxes are extremely dark magic, Mr. Potter. If Dumbledore's assessment is accurate, and I must emphasize that's a significant if, there are experts who can be consulted. But for now, McGonagall interjected firmly, that is not your concern. You are a 6-year-old boy who has endured quite enough for one day. Harry wanted to protest that he wasn't just any 6-year-old, but fatigue overcame his objections. He allowed McGonagall to lead him from the treatment room, pausing only to thank Miranda and Master Healer Thornfield for giving him back his memories. As they left St. Mungo's through a private exit to avoid the press, Harry felt the strange sensation of his magic shifting inside him, like a river that had been dammed suddenly flowing freely again. It was disconcerting but not unpleasant. Professor, he asked as McGonagall prepared to apparate them back to her cottage. Do you think Dumbledore was right? About me having to die to defeat Voldemort? McGonagall's expression was fierce. No, Mr. Potter, I do not. And I promise you this, we will find another way. You have been asked to sacrifice enough already. The conviction in her voice was so strong that Harry believed her. As they disappeared with a crack, he felt something he hadn't expected after such a traumatic day, hope. Sirius Black's trial was nothing like the elaborate Wisengamot session that had addressed Dumbledore's guardianship of Harry. This was a swift, efficient proceeding focused on correcting a miscarriage of justice. Under the influence of Veritaserum, Sirius testified to the switch in Secret Keepers, the confrontation with Pettigrew, and the 5 years he had spent in Azkaban without trial. The evidence was overwhelming. By noon, Sirius Black was officially a free man, with full apologies from the Ministry and promises of significant financial compensation. Harry watched it all from a private viewing room with McGonagall, his heart pounding with anticipation. When the verdict was announced, he could barely contain himself. Can I see him now? He asked, bouncing on the balls of his feet. Please. McGonagall looked down at him with uncharacteristic gentleness. Yes, but remember what we discussed. He's been through a terrible ordeal, Harry. He may not be quite the man you remember. Harry nodded seriously. I know. But he's my godfather. I want to help him get better. They were led to a private room where Sirius waited, accompanied by a mind healer from St. Mungo's. Harry's first glimpse of his godfather was shocking. The handsome, vibrant man from his memories was now gaunt and haunted, his once thick black hair hanging in matted clumps around a face aged beyond its years. But when Sirius looked up and saw Harry, a transformation occurred. His sunken eyes widened, then filled with tears. "Harry," he whispered, his voice hoarse from disuse. "Is it really you?" Harry broke free from McGonagall's gentle restraint and ran forward. Pad foot. Sirius fell to his knees, opening his arms just in time to catch Harry as the boy flung himself forward. They clung to each other, both crying now, Sirius with great, racking sobs that seemed to come from the depths of his soul, Harry with the simple tears of a child reunited with someone he loved. "You remember me," Sirius choked out, pulling back to look at Harry's face. "Merlin, you look just like James." "But your eyes, my mum's eyes," Harry finished. "I know. I remember now." Sirius's gaunt face registered shock. "You remember? But you were so young. Dumbledore put memory charms on me," Harry explained, his voice hardening with an anger that sounded strange from a 6-year-old. "He made me forget everything, you, my parents, being loved. But the healers removed them all." Sirius looked up at McGonagall, confusion and fury warring on his face. "Minerva, what is he talking about?" McGonagall moved forward, her expression grave. "Perhaps we should all sit down. There is much to discuss, and not all of it appropriate for young years." "I want to stay," Harry insisted, still clutching Sirius's thin hand. "I know most of it anyway." The adults exchanged a look that Harry was becoming familiar with, the "how much should we tell the child" look. But Sirius surprised him. "If Harry wants to stay, he stays," he said firmly. "I've just gotten him back. I'm not being separated from him again." McGonagall's lips thinned, but she nodded. "Very well. But I reserve the right to ask him to leave if the conversation becomes excessive." They settled in the comfortable chairs provided, Harry sticking close to Sirius's side. Over the next hour, McGonagall explained everything: the discovery of the memory charms, the Wizengamot hearing, the unsealing of the will, the horrific memories Harry had recovered just the day before. Sirius listened with increasing fury, his hand occasionally tightening around Harry's until he consciously relaxed it. "He knew I was innocent," Sirius finally said, his voice deadly quiet. "He knew about the switch. He had access to the will. And he left me to rot in Azkaban anyway." "It appears so," McGonagall confirmed grimly. "And Harry," Sirius looked down at his godson, his expression softening. "He deliberately suppressed your memories of being loved. Put you with those awful muggles. All to make you, what? More compliant? Easier to manipulate? More willing to die when the time comes," Harry said quietly, repeating Dumbledore's words from his recovered memory. Sirius froze. "What?" McGonagall sighed. "That is perhaps the most disturbing aspect of all this. Albus appears to believe Harry must eventually sacrifice himself to truly defeat you-know-who. Something about a connection between them. A Horcrux," Harry supplied. "He thinks I have a piece of Voldemort's soul in my scar from when he tried to kill me." Sirius recoiled slightly, then visibly forced himself to relax. "And Dumbledore's solution to this was to groom you for death. To strip away everything that might make you want to live." Harry nodded solemnly. "That manipulative old bastard," Sirius growled. "Where is he now?" "In Ministry custody," McGonagall replied. "Arrested last night on multiple charges, including unauthorized memory charms on a minor, child endangerment, magical suppression, and dereliction of duty in your case, Sirius." "Good," Sirius said viciously. "I hope they throw him in the cell next to my dear cousin Bellatrix." "Sirius," McGonagall admonished, with a pointed look at Harry. "Sorry, pup," Sirius said, not looking particularly sorry. "But after what he did to you, to us, I'm angry too," Harry assured him. "Really angry. A ghost of a smile touched Sirius's gaunt face. You remind me so much of your father when you say that. James could never hide his emotions either. What happens now? Harry asked, the question he seemed to be asking constantly these days. Now, Sirius said, looking at McGonagall, we figure out custody arrangements. I'm Harry's godfather, his legal guardian according to James and Lily's will. But I'm in no fit state to take care of a child right now. I've been granted temporary guardianship, McGonagall explained. An arrangement that can continue while you recover, Sirius. And you'll visit all the time, Harry added quickly, seeing Sirius's face fall. Professor McGonagall already said so. You can stay with us whenever you want. I'd like that, Sirius said softly. Very much. The mind healer, who had been observing quietly, finally spoke up. Mr. Black will need significant treatment to recover from his time in Azkaban. I recommend a structured program at St. Mungo's, with gradually increasing visits with Harry as his condition improves. Whatever it takes, Sirius agreed immediately. I want to be well for Harry. And I want to help, Harry insisted. The healers said my memories of before, of my parents, and you, and everyone, they're helping me get better. Maybe my memories can help you too. Sirius's eyes filled with tears again. You're so much like your mother, he whispered. She always believed love could heal anything. She was right, Harry said with the simple conviction of a child. Love saved me from Voldemort. The healers said so. My mum's love protected me, even though Dumbledore tried to make me forget it. Sirius pulled Harry into another fierce hug. No one will ever make you forget again, he promised. No one. The following week passed in a blur of activity. Harry settled into a routine at McGonagall's cottage, visited Sirius daily at St. Mungo's, and watched in fascination as the wizarding world exploded with the news of Dumbledore's arrest and the shocking revelations about his treatment of the boy who lived. Rita Skeeter outdid herself with daily front-page exposés, each more sensational than the last. The public response was overwhelming. Hundreds of letters and packages arrived for Harry, expressing outrage on his behalf and offering everything from toys to adoption into magical families. McGonagall screened everything carefully, allowing Harry to enjoy the well-wishes while protecting him from the inevitable cranks and glory-seekers. She also proved surprisingly adaptable to life with a 6-year-old boy, transforming her neat, orderly cottage into a space where Harry could play and explore without fear of breaking something irreplaceable. Harry's magic continued to strengthen now that Dumbledore's suppression was removed. Occasional bursts of accidental magic, floating objects, spontaneously changing colors, windows that opened on their own when he felt stuffy, became common enough that McGonagall began teaching him simple meditation techniques to help him maintain control. You have an exceptionally strong magical core, Mr. Potter, she explained as they sat cross-legged on the living room floor. Most children your age show occasional accidental magic, but yours is both more frequent and more powerful. Because Dumbledore was holding it back? Harry asked. Partially, McGonagall acknowledged. But I suspect you would have been an unusually powerful wizard regardless. Both your parents were magically gifted, particularly your mother in charms and your father in transfiguration. Harry absorbed this information with pride. Every new detail about his parents was precious to him, another piece of the heritage Dumbledore had tried to deny him. The biggest development came 9 days after Sirius's release, when Madame Bones arrived at the cottage with an unusual request. We need Harry to come to the Department of Mysteries, she explained to McGonagall. The Unspeakables believe they may have found a solution to the issue Dumbledore identified. The Horcrux, Harry said bluntly, having overheard from the next room. He'd become quite adept at eavesdropping, a skill developed during his years with the Dursleys. Madame Bones sighed. Yes, Mr. Potter. If you are indeed carrying a fragment of you-know-whose soul, the Unspeakables think they can remove it without harming you. Without me having to die, you mean, Harry clarified. Precisely, Madame Bones confirmed. The procedure would take place tomorrow, if you consent. Will it hurt? Harry asked pragmatically. They don't believe so, Madam Bones replied. You would be placed in a magical sleep for the duration. Harry considered this, then nodded decisively. I want it gone. Whatever piece of him is inside me, I want it out. McGonagall placed a protective hand on his shoulder. I will, of course, accompany him. And I'd like Sirius Black present as well, if the healers approve it. That can be arranged, Madam Bones agreed. The procedure is scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. The Department of Mysteries will provide a secure flow connection. After she left, Harry sat quietly at the kitchen table, absently tracing the lightning-shaped scar on his forehead. Does it bother you? McGonagall asked gently. The idea that you might have been carrying a piece of him all this time. It's creepy, Harry admitted. And it makes me feel dirty, somehow. Like I'm contaminated. McGonagall sat beside him, her normally stern face softening. You are not contaminated, Harry Potter. If such a fragment exists, it was forced upon you against your will. It does not define you or diminish the remarkable young man you are. Harry smiled gratefully. Thanks, Professor. I just want it gone so I can be, just me. Just Harry. You have always been, just Harry, McGonagall assured him. And after tomorrow, nothing of you-know-who will remain to trouble you. The Department of Mysteries lived up to its name, a labyrinthine space deep beneath the Ministry of Magic, where robed figures moved silently through dimly lit corridors and strange noises emanated from behind locked doors. Harry clung to Sirius's hand as they followed an unspeakable through the maze. McGonagall walked on his other side, her expression betraying none of the anxiety Harry knew she must be feeling. Sirius, freshly released from St. Mungo's for this occasion, looked better than he had just days before. Regular meals, healing potions, and freedom from the Dementors had begun the process of restoring him. His hair was clean and trimmed, his prison rags replaced with proper robes, and while still too thin, his face had lost some of its deathly pallor. All right there, pup, he asked quietly, giving Harry's hand a reassuring squeeze. Just nervous, Harry admitted. What if they're wrong? What if it does hurt? Then I'll tear this place apart brick by brick, Sirius promised, only half joking. No one hurts my godson. They were led to a circular chamber containing what appeared to be a stone altar in the center, surrounded by runes carved into the floor. Several unspeakables waited there, their faces hidden by their hoods. Mr. Potter, one greeted him, voice magically altered to be neither male nor female. Thank you for coming. We believe we have developed a procedure to safely remove the soul fragment without causing you any harm. How? Harry asked bluntly. Dumbledore thought I had to die for it to be destroyed. Dumbledore was working with incomplete information, the unspeakable replied. We have studied Horcruxes extensively, theoretically, of course, as their creation is among the darkest of magics. The soul fragment in your scar is unusually unstable because it was created accidentally, not through the proper ritual. This makes it more vulnerable to extraction. And you're sure it won't hurt him? Sirius demanded, his protective instincts on full display. The procedure itself is painless, the unspeakable assured them. Mr. Potter will be placed in an enchanted sleep throughout. He may experience some discomfort upon waking, a headache, perhaps, but nothing more severe. McGonagall, who had been examining the runic circle with a critical eye, finally spoke. The arithmetic equations seem sound. And I recognize elements of ancient Egyptian soul magic here. Indeed, Professor, the unspeakable confirmed. The procedure combines several magical traditions, synthesized for this specific purpose. Very well, McGonagall said after a final assessment. Mr. Potter has consented, as have his guardians. You may proceed. Harry was led to the stone altar and asked to lie down. The surface was cool against his back, but not uncomfortable. Sirius stood at his head, while McGonagall remained at his side, her wand visible in her hand, a clear warning that she was prepared to intervene if necessary. "We will now administer the sleeping draught," the unspeakable explained, offering a small vial of purple liquid. "When you wake, the procedure will be complete." Harry took the vial, looking first at Sirius, then at McGonagall. At their encouraging nods, he drank the potion in one gulp. It tasted like blackberries and mint, not unpleasant at all. Almost immediately, his eyelids grew heavy. "We'll be right here when you wake up, pup," Sirius promised, the last thing Harry heard before darkness claimed him. The procedure took precisely 1 hour and 27 minutes. Throughout, the unspeakables worked in coordinated silence, channeling magic through the runic circle, drawing the foreign soul fragment out of Harry's scar with painstaking care. When a black, oily mist finally emerged from the lightning bolt mark, it writhed in the air for a moment before being contained in a specially prepared crystal vessel. Sirius and McGonagall watched with expressions of horror and relief as the fragment was sealed away. The lead unspeakable cast several diagnostic spells over Harry before finally stepping back. "It is done," they announced. "The soul fragment has been completely removed. Mr. Potter is free of its influence." "And the thing?" McGonagall asked, eyeing the crystal vessel with distaste. "It will be studied, then destroyed," the unspeakable assured her. "We believe you know who may have created other such vessels. This specimen may help us locate and neutralize them." Sirius barely heard this exchange, his attention focused entirely on Harry's still form. The scar on his godson's forehead, previously raised and red, had faded to a thin, silvery line, still visible, but no longer angry and inflamed. "When will he wake?" Sirius asked anxiously. "The sleeping draught will wear off naturally in approximately 10 minutes, the unspeakable replied. "He should experience no adverse effects, though as mentioned, a mild headache is possible." True to their word, Harry began to stir precisely 9 minutes later. His eyes fluttered open, immediately seeking and finding Sirius's concerned face. "Did it work?" he asked, his voice slightly groggy. "It worked, pup," Sirius confirmed, helping him sit up. "How do you feel?" Harry considered the question, taking stock of his body with unusual awareness for a child his age. "Different," he finally said. "Lighter, somehow. Like something heavy was pressing down on me and now it's gone." McGonagall approached, casting her own diagnostic charm with a flick of her wand. "Your magical aura is notably clearer," she observed. "More coherent." One of the unspeakables offered Harry a small mirror. "Your scar has changed as well, Mr. Potter." Harry took the mirror, examining his reflection with fascination. The lightning bolt was still there, but fainter, a silvery reminder rather than an angry wound. "It doesn't hurt anymore," he realized. "It always used to ache a little, especially when I was upset." The foreign presence was likely causing that discomfort, the unspeakable explained. "With it removed, the scar is simply a scar, a remnant of powerful magic, but no longer a vessel for dark influence." Harry handed the mirror back, a smile spreading across his face. "I feel good," he declared. "Really good." Sirius laughed, the sound still rusty from disuse but genuine. "That's the idea, pup. And it only gets better from here." Albus Dumbledore's trial was the sensation of the decade in the wizarding world. Every seat in the Wizengamot chamber was filled, with spectators standing 3 deep in the galleries. The evidence against the former chief warlock was overwhelming: Harry's recovered memories, pensive testimony from McGonagall and Snape, medical documentation from St. Mungo's, and most damning of all, Dumbledore's own admissions under Veritaserum. "I believe the prophecy left no alternative," he testified, his usual grandfatherly manner stripped away by the truth serum. For Voldemort to be truly defeated, Harry Potter would eventually have to die, taking the Horcrux within him to destruction. "I deemed it kinder to raise him without strong attachments that would make that sacrifice more difficult." "And you made this decision entirely on your own?" the prosecutor asked. "Without consulting other experts in prophecy or soul magic?" "I am the foremost magical authority of our age," Dumbledore replied, the Veritasrum compelling complete honesty without the modesty he might normally have affected. "I deemed consultation unnecessary and potentially dangerous, given the sensitive nature of the information." "So you unilaterally decided that a child should be raised for slaughter," the prosecutor summarized bluntly. "And took extraordinary measures, illegal measures, to ensure he would be psychologically conditioned to accept that fate when the time came." "I acted for the greater good," Dumbledore insisted, though without his usual conviction. "The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. Even when the one is an innocent child placed in your care," the prosecutor pressed. "Especially then," Dumbledore replied. "The fate of our world was at stake." A murmur of disgust rippled through the chamber. Even those who had once been Dumbledore's staunchest supporters looked troubled by this cold calculus. The trial lasted 3 days. In the end, the verdict was unanimous: guilty on all counts. The sentence was severe: 50 years in Azkaban, stripped of all titles and honors, his Order of Merlin revoked, his name removed from all current positions of authority including headmaster of Hogwarts. Harry, who had been spared attending the trial in person, received the news from Sirius and McGonagall at the cottage. "So he'll be in prison until he dies?" Harry asked, trying to process this information. "Most likely," Sirius confirmed. "He's already well over 100 years old, even with a wizard's extended lifespan." "How do you feel about that, Harry?" McGonagall asked carefully. Harry considered the question seriously. "I'm glad he can't hurt anyone else," he finally said. "But mostly I just want to forget about him and live my life." "A very mature perspective," McGonagall approved. "Speaking of living your life," Sirius interjected, "I have some news." He exchanged a glance with McGonagall, who nodded encouragingly. "The mind healers have cleared me to take on partial guardianship. That means, if you want, you could split your time between my new place and Professor McGonagall's." Harry's eyes widened. "Really? You're well enough?" "Well enough for shared custody," Sirius clarified. "I'll still need regular therapy sessions, but I'm stable enough to care for you part-time." "The arrangement would be flexible," McGonagall added. "During the school year, you would primarily stay with Sirius, with weekend visits to me at Hogwarts. During summers and holidays, we could share custody more evenly." "And I've bought a house," Sirius continued eagerly. "Nothing too grand, but with plenty of space for both of us. It's in a village called Godric's Hollow, where your parents lived." Harry's heart seemed to swell in his chest. "Near where they're buried?" Sirius nodded solemnly. "I thought you might want to visit them sometimes. Talk to them." "Yes," Harry whispered. "I'd like that. So what do you think, pup? Want to come live with your old godfather part-time?" "Yes." Harry launched himself at Sirius, nearly knocking the still-recovering man off his chair. "When can we start?" Sirius laughed, holding Harry tightly. "How about this weekend? Just a couple of nights at first, to see how we both adjust. And I'll be checking in regularly," McGonagall added, trying to sound stern but failing to hide her smile. "To ensure you're not subsisting entirely on chocolate frogs and pumpkin pasties." "As if I would allow such nutritional negligence," Sirius protested with mock offense. "I'll have you know I've mastered at least 3 proper meals: scrambled eggs, beans on toast, and sandwiches." "Merlin help us," McGonagall muttered, but her eyes were twinkling. Harry looked between them, a happiness unlike anything he'd ever known expanding in his chest. After everything, the Dursleys, the memory charms, the Horcrux, Dumbledore's manipulation, he had found his place. A home. A family. "Can we visit my parents' grave this weekend?" he asked Sirius. "Of course," Sirius promised. "I think they'd like that very much." Godric's Hollow in late spring was picture-perfect: quaint cottages with well-tended gardens, a small village square with ancient oak trees providing shade, and a stone church whose graveyard held generations of magical families alongside their Muggle neighbors. Harry walked between Sirius and McGonagall, a small bouquet of lilies clutched in his hand. As they approached the white marble headstone, he felt a strange mixture of sadness and peace. James Potter Lily Potter, born March 27, 1960, born January 30, 1960, died October 31, 1981, died October 31, 1981. The last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. What does that mean? Harry asked, pointing to the inscription. It means that death isn't the end, Sirius explained softly. That love and memory continue beyond physical life. Harry nodded, then stepped forward to place the lilies at the base of the headstone. He stood silent for a moment, then spoke quietly. Hello, Mom. Hello, Dad. It's me, Harry. I remember you now, how much you loved me, how brave you were. I just wanted you to know that I'm okay. I have people taking care of me now. Good people who knew you and loved you too. He reached back, and Sirius stepped forward to place a supportive hand on his shoulder. I'm going to make you proud, Harry continued. I promise. And I won't forget again. Not ever. As they stood there in the peaceful graveyard, a gentle breeze stirred the branches overhead, sending dappled sunlight dancing across the marble stone. For a moment, just a moment, Harry thought he felt something, a warm embrace, the faint echo of his mother's voice, his father's laughter. Not memory this time, but presence. Love that transcended death, that could never truly be erased or forgotten. They know, Sirius whispered, seeming to sense what Harry was feeling. They've always known how special you are, Harry. Harry nodded, tears tracking silently down his cheeks. But these were healing tears, cleansing, renewing. He was Harry James Potter, son of Lily and James, godson of Sirius Black, ward of Minerva McGonagall. He was loved. He had always been loved. And no memory charm in the world could ever truly take that away. 4 years later, Harry Potter stood on platform 9 3/4, surrounded by his unusual family, Sirius, now fully recovered and running a successful defense company, McGonagall, still stern but with a special smile reserved just for him, Remus Lupin, who had returned from abroad 2 years earlier to become a permanent fixture in their lives, and various honorary aunts and uncles from the wizarding world who had stepped up to give Harry the community his parents would have wanted for him. Got everything, pup? Sirius asked, helping Harry secure his trunk on the trolley. Wand? Robes? That ridiculous map I definitely don't know anything about that somehow found its way into your possession. Sirius, McGonagall admonished, though her lips twitched suspiciously. Everything's packed, Harry confirmed with a grin. And I'll write every week, I promise. See that you do, McGonagall said. Though I'll be seeing you at school, of course, it's not the same as our regular conversations. You'll be brilliant, Remus assured him, straightening Harry's collar affectionately. Just remember, learning comes first, adventure second, Harry finished with an eye roll that didn't quite hide his affection. I know, Moony. As the warning whistle blew, Harry found himself suddenly enveloped in a group hug, Sirius's arms strong around him, McGonagall's hand firm on his shoulder, Remus's familiar chocolate and parchment scent surrounding him. Your parents would be so proud, Sirius whispered fiercely. So bloody proud, Harry. As are we, McGonagall added, her Scottish brogue more pronounced with emotion. Harry hugged them back just as tightly, then broke away with a smile. I'll see you all at Christmas, he promised. And I'll make you proud too. As he boarded the Hogwarts Express, waving from the window until his family disappeared from view, Harry Potter felt none of the anxiety Dumbledore had once planned for him, no desperate gratitude toward a manufactured savior, no malleable eagerness to please authority figures, no lonely child's craving for acceptance at any cost. Instead, he felt confident, loved, and ready, truly ready, for whatever adventures awaited him at Hogwarts. His memories were intact, his family secure, his future his own to shape. And somewhere beyond the veil, James and Lily Potter watched their son begin his journey, their sacrifice vindicated not by his willingness to die, but by his hard-won chance to truly live. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.